Get ready, racing fans! The most electrifying week in motorsports is back! October 6th to 11th, Oswego Speedway transforms into the Clay Palace, the ultimate battleground for Super Dirt Week. From the thrilling races to the electrifying atmosphere, it's more than a race. It's racing's biggest party. Don't miss out. Super Dirt Week 2025, October 6th through the 11th.
HD, Bridgeport, Syracuse, WTKV, Minetto, Oswego. We are live and gearing up for the Syracuse Orange. It's our Syracuse Haulers pregame tailgate with Gomez and Adam Terry. On TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
Game day for the Orange, the Duke Blue Devils. In the Orange in the Dome, kicking off at noon in the JMA Wireless Dome. Gomez here live at the World Headquarters on the flagship station for Syracuse football, TK99 and TK105. Former SU and NFL lineman Adam Terry up on the quad for that portion of the pregame. And Adam, how was the ride in there from the greater Rochester area?
Oh, it was fantastic. Just getting ready to roll. I think this is probably the most active I've ever seen the quad since I've started here.
No kidding.
This early in the morning, we might have a lot of Bloody Marys and mimosas walking around, a couple big giant cups of coffee, but I think the atmosphere of what it's going to be in the JMA Wireless Dome is going to be electric. I think you have something to cheer about, and it's an opportunity for Syracuse to keep progressing. We saw Virginia last night beat up Florida State, and the fan base down there has been relishing in the fact of getting a guy like Tony Elliott in there, and it took them a lot longer to build it than they expected, but you get to see that the fan base that's been a long time coming down there and get going. And I think the same thing is that up in Central New York, when you look at what Syracuse did last year. And we've seen that in the past with a Dino Babers era, 10-3, and then this significant drop-off. Now, I would feel a lot better with a guy like Steve Angeli at the helm, just because of how he was developing over a period of time, how he was gelling in general. But look, I think this is a dynamic coaching staff, and we should be very excited because I don't know if all this whole coaching staff will be here next year, and that's a good thing. That they can elevate themselves, and they're good at what they do. So excited to see the parents and the kids file into the Dome with a meaningful game to go and cheer about.
And back to that Florida State loss last night at the Virginia. With that loss, whoever wins today in the Dome would be tied atop the conference at 2-0 early in the season here.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's an opportunity to keep advancing and start to distance yourself. Last week, regardless of how we felt the Clemson team was, I think they're extremely talented. I just don't think they're all playing on the same cylinders, right? And to look at what Syracuse is doing and how they went down there, you go in with a game plan sometimes, and in the past, it's keep it close and try to make something last at the end. And Fran and Coach Brumfeld with that onside kick early, the opportunity to now go up early and silence the crowd. And, the lightning delay comes and the crowd is non-existent. They had all left because they had parents' weekends last weekend, and all of those dinner reservations made 6 months ago they weren't going to miss. So, we lucked out in a lot of that, but to go watch that team, probably 50, 60 guys stepped out on the field, and everybody went in and they didn't skip a beat. So extremely proud and happy about that, but one game, one win doesn't make your season, and a down Clemson team doesn't get us a win this week, but I like the attitude and the demeanor that I've seen so far.
And we can relive a couple of those moments you were just referencing there, Adam, starting with that onside kick. Plus from the press box, watching that opening drive for the Orange march down the field, how was the crowd taking that information in as they were watching in real time?
Well,
First drive. I know it's early, right? But
I think the crowd was a little bit in disbelief, right? Jeff Nixon, I sing his praises all the time. He knows his personnel. He puts together a good game plan, and he's going to take what they give you, right? For the most part, because we went in with the number one passing offense in the country, what do you think they do? Okay, they're going to give us a light box. So in between the two tackles and at linebacker depth, we're going to six-man box. So we're going to run the hell out of the ball. And that's what we started to do, and we softened them up with some inside zone, some duo, and, a little bit of old-school slobber knocker. We're going to knock you off the ball mano a mano. And then when you started giving us the middle of the field and you started to take those linebackers and run them out, you started to see a little bit of the Jonte Cook quick slant right across the middle. Dan Villari caught one. So, knowing your personnel and knowing the demeanor of how this offensive line is coming along. Just like last year, I trust in Dale Williams. My son's down at the Shine Center right now as a recruit, and I have the utmost faith in what they're doing as the offensive line, and it just takes a little bit of time. Most of this offensive line that you see out of Syracuse either weren't on campus or didn't even know each other's name, 8 months ago, 6 months ago. And now it's starting to gel. And the progression it's been good. And now you're starting to see also the head coach and his understanding of how this college football game is played right now. You're starting to see younger guys get into roles, whether that's 2-3 series, because that is also the opportunity to keep people happy with the new, or I shouldn't say with the new, with the transfer portal the way that it is. And having the ability to plug people in and knowing full well that they're capable of doing it, that is the awesome part. You can plug them in and you try to keep them happy, but if you can't do your job, it doesn't matter.
Here's one of the cool highlights from last week's game, and I'll play the, as you and Matt Park called it, at Clemson.
ARS into the right side boundary, and Nixon is back, or rather Willis back, throwing right side one-on-one. High in the air, did he catch it? He did. Wow. Another Moss job. Justice Ross Simmons on the right side boundary for an orange touchdown. And what a great drive to open the game. High in the air, Justice Ross Simmons might have some gloves headed his way.
And as it turns out, he did. But that guy just week in and week out seems to at least have one play like that, Adam.
Well, that's the thing. And when you look at Justice Ross Simmons and how he's navigated to get to Syracuse is most impressive. Starting at East High School in Rochester, New York, and then going out to California, playing there, getting lightly recruited, going to Colorado State, proving himself, and then coming back home. Right? Syracuse didn't sniff him when he was a high school recruit. Now he's a highly regarded talent that now we just have to hone his skills. And then, one of the statements that was made by Fran Brown, I believe 2 press conferences ago, was Justice Ross Simmons can be as good as Justice Ross Simmons wants to be, right? So he has all the tools, all of the capabilities, and it's just making sure that, in the world of Fran Brown, he's Dart, right? Detailed, accountable, relentless, and tough. And he is another guy, and it's these and they're not even diamond in the rough, so I hate using that phrase. It's a guy that has gone under the radar, given an opportunity, and then seizes the opportunity when he has the ability, just like Jackson Meeks of last year.
Mike Greenberg this week was on Orange Nation. He's got a new book out, very talented former Mike and Mike legendary radio show and a sports writer, but Mike Greenberg was on Orange Nation with Stephen Pauly earlier on this week, and he was talking about Daryl Gill's celebration for winning the Moss from the week before and how cool that moment is for a guy.
I am acutely aware of Syracuse football and what they did to Clemson. Holy smoke. So, I think it's great. And yes, playing that reaction from Gill, it made me feel good. It made Randy feel so good. Look, Randy is so iconic. The reaction that people have to him is just amazing to me. I've spent my entire adult life around professional athletes, and people tend to hold them all in some degree of awe. But Randy is next level. people react to Randy the way they do to LeBron and Michael and people like that, and he deserves it. He is that good and that iconic. So, yes, all those reactions when people get those gloves, they make Randy feel great. They make us feel great. And that one, I remember it in particular. It was just this week, but it really stood out because of the excitement of all the players. Like when they opened it and everyone was jumping around, it was a great moment. We loved it.
That is kind of a cool new tradition in college football when they show that on the following Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's, I don't know whether it's more impressive, whether it's Steve and Paulie getting Mike Greenberg on, or whether or not Daryl Gill getting who's got moss gloves. Who's coming up in the world
right?
now, right? So, but to get back to Daryl Gill and what, the actual player that did something, it's tremendous. You get to see these guys start to progress. Daryl Gill, we knew he had talent. We knew he had speed. And now for that to start to come to fruition, it's the honing of the talents by these coaches, and it's fun to watch, right? Like, we've gotten kids in the past, and it's like, oh, man, he's not as good as we thought. But I always go back to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin always used to say, there's a crossroads at some point where you're looking at the guy and you can say he can't do this, he can't do this, he can't do that. Or you say, I got to get him better at this, and this. And then that is where I think the paradigm shift in Syracuse has been, is addressing the deficiencies in the player and raising not only the floor but also raising the ceiling of what those guys can do when they're put out in certain packages.
That is Adam Terry up on the quad. It's Gomez here from the World Headquarters. Game day for the Orange as you're getting ready to kick off against Duke in the JMA Wireless Dome. We'll take a quick break. Coming up, we'll hear from Coach Fran Brown from earlier in the week and some of the other highlights from last weekend's win over Clemson. We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back.
TK 99.
Ready, off and running there.
I just want to know how much you pay, Paulie?
To get Greenberg on?
He's talking. Hey, he's big time in me now. Yeah. He's got his own radio show going on over there. You just didn't know that. Yeah, I mean it's buzzing. It's not there yet, but it's much better than I've ever seen.
Good.
At this point in time.
Comparing it to Dino, the year that it was popping there.
Ever.
Far more than even that, even though that was that one season was special.
Yeah, that one season was special, but I don't think they got it.
Uh-huh.
Right? When you do one season, you catch on at the end. You're not there this early in the season. You're here for the last 2-3 games, right? And that is 2 weeks from now. That is the start of that. But now you're starting to see it, right? Like, I just think we were having this conversation inside. Tim Leonard and I were talking about it, and it's like, hey, if we win this game and you go and you play a competitive SMU, right? Because I think SMU is down, but you go in and you play one of those games, you come back and you play Pitt. Is the Dome sold out if you put out good performances? And I said no.
Mm-hmm.
And the logic behind that is we lost a generation of fans, right? With when we were so poor, I was the end of the Coach Mack era that, the dad or the grandfather, the father, and the son were in the stands. And, it was something that you went to. It wasn't like church, but it was, it was one of those things that you came out and did. And then when we had that era of Greg Robinson, we started to turn the corner a little bit with Doug. We got that back. People started coming back in. But, that next window of Schaaf and into Dino, we lost these 15 to 25-year-olds. Now they're rooting for other schools. They're watching it on TV. It's easier to turn on your phone. And we lost that enjoyment of going sitting in the stands in the nosebleeds, getting a dome dog. And that is, if I'm doing the marketing, like that's who I'm addressing, is in 10 years, those are the guys that are going to be bringing their kids. If you don't get them now, you're going to miss out on that.
That's a good point.
And that's hard to fathom, but it's also you got to go in, you got to go hard. I mean, look, I'll say it this way: if Fran Brown could use 43,000 tickets, 45,000 tickets for recruits, he's going to get them. Right? You know, we might not see a great revenue return on it, but
there we go.
He's going to have it.
And TK 105.
It's a noon kickoff. Syracuse hosting at the Duke Blue Devils in the JMA Wireless Dome. Coming up later on today, it's Gomez and Adam Terry live from the quad. And Adam, you were mentioned earlier, this is as active as a quad pregame for a noon kickoff, especially that you've seen in the entire time that you've been doing these pregame broadcasts.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think there is a little bit of a buzz, and you know, like I said, a lot of coffees, a lot of Bloody Marys, a lot of mimosas out there. But you're starting to see the opportunity to cheer, right? Get involved, and it's starting to fill up, right? Like that's fun. I've been here sometimes where I can see all the way past Shine, like you can just see for miles,
yes.
Right? And we're on top of a hill, and I understand that, but there's starting to filter in. People are excited about it. Lots of orange, lots of, older logos, right? Like that's pretty cool to see. You got all the vintage shops nowadays, but you get to see people that, 20 years ago, they're wearing the same jacket, they're wearing the same shirt, so that's pretty fun to watch.
From the stream chat here, we're on QSportsTalk.com, which is a fun aspect of the pregame, is you can watch not only from here in the studio, but also up in the quad. But you can also have some fun here in the stream chat. Debbie wants to know, Adam, what does, quote, old school power and duo mean? You said it during the description of how we played against Clemson.
Okay, how do I want to put it? Duo, for instance, is double team. So you're going to... there's always an argument, is it a gap scheme? It is a zone scheme. How they run it here, it's a gap scheme. So you're going to get double teams. You're going to try to knock the two defensive tackles off the football, try to create a space between your side of the line of scrimmage and their side of the line of scrimmage. So think of two guys that are trying to move one human being as far as they can into the lap of the linebacker. So when you look at the you look at the defensive line, and then you look at that second level, the second level are the linebackers. If you can knock those guys 3 to 4 yards back, that will result in probably 3 to 4 yards, maybe even more on a carry. And when you're doing this, and this has been done a lot to Syracuse, it wears you down, right? And you're in this mentality of, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to impose our will against them, and that's what you have to do. And they were very successful running the football early, and then, they had the opportunity to throw the ball around. But old school power run, like, there are schemes that this is a scheme that if you pull open a playbook in the 70s and 80s, it's going to be not the same, but it's going to have a similar identity of, okay, this play is meant to knock somebody off the ball, demoralize them because we're taking our defensive tackle and moving him into the lap of the linebacker.
You mentioned the playbook, obviously, and it'll look maybe a little bit different today with Ricky Collins starting at the quarterback, but Coach Fran Brown, again on Orange Nation earlier on this week, asked if the offense is going to look different now with Ricky.
No, we switched the offense. We're going to power our right, wishbone. Nah, it's the same. It's going to be the same offense. They're the same guys. It's going to be the same thing. That's how we were able to compete and figure out who was able to do what because of those guys. So it'll be the same. I'm hoping it's the same. Hopefully we can score more points now, right? And that's the plan. I want to be able to score more points. We want to be able to run the ball better. We want to be able to pass the ball better. We're hoping that we continue to get better. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. We're still the same football team. It's just the next man up mentality.
Next man up, and from Fran's point of view, nothing really should change as far as the playbook.
I don't disagree. The playbook will be the same. You're not throwing the playbook and lighting it on fire, but there will be nuances of Ricky Collins that I think might show that a guy like Steve Angeli doesn't do, right? Like, there was a reason we went out and got a former 4-star LSU quarterback in the transfer portal, and there's also a reason that we picked up Steve Angeli, and Steve Angeli pulled away early during summer camp and into the season. He's the one that got it. And then there's probably some things, whether it's protections or whether it's a RPO game, right? Like, these are all in the playbook. What Jeff Nixon does is he knows his personnel and understands what he's capable of doing. So, you know, if you're sliding a protection one way and this quarterback really doesn't have a lot of vision in a certain direction, well, you might have to protect him a little bit differently. But to say that the playbook is thrown out, I wholeheartedly agree with Fran. To say that there will not be some nuances or slight tweaks, that's blasphemy, because, you know, I think for Fran, that's a little bit of coach speak.
Yeah.
Because you got to go into the game plan and say, hey, you know, nothing's going to change. This is how we're going to do it. But everybody does something different. You know, there's a lot of wide receivers in the NFL that run 3 great routes. You're not going to make them run 7, right? You're going to run 3 great routes, and that's your repertoire, and you're going to I shouldn't say you're not going to run 7, but you're going to stick to your strengths. And I think at the end, we're going to stick to our strengths. I don't know what Ricky Collins' strengths are right now. I saw a small sample size. I saw him during spring practice, saw him during the summer. But, you know, right in that level right there, that's the competition aspect. And we know he's a competitor. We understand that there were a lot of high praise on him. And, you know, it's rock and roll, man. Next man up is the epitome of what this organization is right now. You know, you're going to be down probably 2 to 3 guys that we've counted on, and whether they're able to go, that's going to be the question. And then who's going to fulfill that role? And if you fulfill that role, can you take that role away from somebody?
As you were mentioning earlier, Adam, with the success comes a higher profile for the coaching staff as the season moves on forward. And in this case, Coach Fran obviously is very good at getting quotes and getting retweets and getting some recognition around the country. He was on the Rich Eisen show earlier on this week talking about Ricky Collins and Steve Angeli.
That's why we paid for 2. Ricky will be ready to step in.
Ricky Collins.
We had a heated battle. Ricky will be ready to go. Next man up mentality. I believe in Ricky. I think he's a great kid. And you know the best thing about this kid, what he does when he gets to the field, I think he'll do well, but he stayed ready. He worked. There's so many kids that when they don't win that spot, they quit, they mope, they sit back, and they complain. And we got some on our team that was doing that, but he wasn't one of those guys. He was in there every night watching tape with Steve and pushing Steve.
There you go. Good teammates all the way around.
It's a great teammate, but it's also great culture, right? Like, I think the thing that when you look at Fran and what he's done, it's a great culture. Everybody's in there in trying to compete and trying to win a job. If not, I think he's one of the first people. I saw a clip from him this week when he was talking about it. Hey, man, you got to go, right? Like, you give me 3 years, right? I'm going to get you an education. And if you're not ready by then and you can't contribute in meaningful snaps, you got to go, because it's not a great situation for you. And I think that is the culture. And the culture is you're just one play away. Everybody has to stay ready. And the sprinkling of players in, not only for this, hey, I don't want them to leave, I need to get them in, but also, hey, we're going to give you some meaningful snaps. You got to make the best out of them. And if you do, now you're pushing that room, right? When I say the room, it's whether it's quarterback or the O-line or the linebacker room. Like, those are the things that you need to continue to progress, is the competition within those rooms. Because if it's a coach-led team, you're only going to go so far, right? Because the coach isn't out on the field. And I've experienced that in a myriad of different ways, right? Like coaching and as a player. You know, the coaches can give you the rah-rah speech and they can be on you every day, but it only matters when those players step between the lines. If you put them in the right place and they can't execute, then it's on the player, and those players have to stay ready. And I appreciate Fran saying that Ricky has stayed ready because now it's an opportunity. I can rewind years ago. We had R.J. Anderson and Troy Nunes, right? Like we're going way back into this. I shouldn't say way back, but for some,
way back.
For some, it's a good rewind. 20 years ago, and you look at how that was. R.J. Anderson won the competition the year prior. We went a 10-3 team. We finished 14th in the country, led by Dwight Freeney, led by a great senior class, and then the next year, RJ didn't do what they thought was sufficient, and then you started to see the sprinkling of Troy Nunes. So, you always have to keep that next guy, especially at the quarterback position, because you're one hit away, one play away, to be prepared and ready to go out on the field.
That is the voice of Adam Terry. It's Gomez here at the flagship station for Syracuse football, TK99 and TK105. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our pregame tailgate broadcast.
TK99.
All righty. The band's starting to assemble, all that stuff.
Yeah, they're hoofing it across. So you're starting to see more buses in from like Sky Top, and you're seeing a bigger congregation coming up the hill. So I don't know whether that means the frat houses were ready early, or that's where the hotels are. Actually, there's not many hotels anymore, are there?
There really aren't. I mean, the Sheraton, and there's
because they bought the Sheraton, yeah.
And then the smaller, is it the Skylar?
Yeah, that's a little bit further down, right?
A bit smaller. And down on East Genesee Street, is that the Collegian, or whatever it used to be called?
Oh, that still exists. Yeah, it was the Genesee Inn back in the day?
I believe that's still...
that was great. That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice spot down there.
Then they turned it over a little bit and threw some bootleg vinyl floor, yeah. So... yeah, that's the hard part. There's nothing really close to the stadium that is big enough to hold a lot of people. Walkable distance, I should say. Ooh. Thank you. Could I get a water? Thank you.
Do they have Chick-fil-A again today up there?
Oh, no, we're going Dunkin'.
Oh, yeah. What will be the, it's a noon game, and they've kind of dialed back the press room grub a little bit. What would be your guess that they will have in the press box? Pastries and stuff?
Going pastries, donuts. They do a good job with the donuts. Rehydrated eggs. Probably some type of sausage and bacon, and then like some hash brown type-esque things. I was severely disappointed in Clemson.
Oh, no.
Did you think Clemson's food was horrible? Yeah, the bread was moldy. Oh, yeah. No, so they went. Paulie went to go grab me a hot dog at halftime, and the bread was moldy. Imagine that. I guess when it's going downhill, it goes from the top down, right?
Yep.
It's all going downhill after that. Good Lord. But they had some casserole type thing, and it would look disgusting. It would look pretty much like vomit. What else did they have, Paulie? And it was so bad. It wasn't even, sometimes we don't do a very good job of refilling. This was you went, 8 people went, and it was gone. And that was it.
And no more.
There was no
refill. Soup for you.
Yes.
Done.
Yes. And then you were done. That was it. Cookies were good. They weren't moldy, so we were good.
Cookies are always a welcome addition to.
The burgers looked a little off, but I still ate it. I was hungry at that point. Yeah. Like Paulie was saying, it looks like they Sharpied the grill marks on it. So,
There we go.
We
5 per month per thousand financed. Upon approved credit through Santander Consumer USA. MSRP $38,625. Stock number 7955. See store for details. Ends 9/30/25.
It's almost game time. Gomez and Adam Terry are live with our Syracuse Haulers pregame tailgate on TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
Live from TK99 and TK105 in Armory Square, and then also from the Quad, where Adam Terry is taking it all in, and crowds starting to filter in, but at a higher rate than we've been accustomed to.
Yeah, it's exciting. You're starting to see, the buses come in from Skytop. There's a big contingent that's coming up the hill, and I think we're in the realm of 200 recruits. Like, the sideline will be packed. It'll be interesting what that sideline looks like pregame, because they feel as though this is a nice time and a good showpiece to get people excited, especially recruits. There's some high-level kids coming in, and there's some guys that they're heavily touted by them. So it's exciting, and to get the feel back into it. The band is starting to get ready for the campus walk, the player walk coming from the bus. So, I'm excited to see. We're told every once in a while that, hey, you're going to have X amount of people in the stands. I just hope you have an opportunity that if you bought a ticket, your butt's in a seat, and now it's up to Syracuse to put on a show.
As they did last week. Again, I know Coach likes to turn the page and put the most recent game to rest at 6 o'clock by Sunday night. But we were talking a little bit during the break, but on QSportsTalk.com, when things go down, they just seem to go way down. In this case, Clemson, the food in the press box, reflective of the vibe of the football program at the moment. They're cutting everybody off. All right.
Yeah, when it goes downhill, it starts from the top down, and I think we were on the back end of that up in the press box with. It was demoralizing food, right? Like, you got in there and you're like, I'm good. I don't even want to eat this.
Well,
maybe that's the objective. I don't know.
Earlier in the week. Again, going back to Orange Nation, West Durham was on with the guys, and he was talking about that game, the Clemson game, and he said from here out for Clemson, they can't look at the next team they're playing. They have to start looking in the mirror. Are they at that spot right now?
Yes, because the feel and the environment, the crowd was in it, and then the crowd turned, right? So, it's the old gladiator thing. You got to go win the crowd,
yep.
Right? And you got to go out there and win the crowd. And they had to win the crowd over, and this is a loyal fan base. And I know Dabo wants to talk about his, all of his wins and his victories and what he's done and all of those things. But there seems to be a disconnect. And you saw it early, and you saw it on the sideline, and you also started to see that permeate on the field between some players. And I think that the game plan is get after him early, silence the crowd a little bit. The lightning delay helped us where it sent some people away, but Syracuse did their part in that, and Clemson just they don't look good. Kay Klubnik didn't look good, and it just went downhill fast.
You mentioned the lightning delay. The nighttime Coach Fran Brown show with the voice of the Orange, Matt Park. Coach Fran asked about the lightning delay and how that impacted or affected anybody.
No, I liked it. I thought it brought us closer together as a team. We were in there. We were able to just relax. We got more time in the locker room. And we got to spend time together, talk, joke, mess around. Like, we really just sit back and chill. I was like, all right, let's just chill. Like, let's lock our coaches, leave them alone. Let's just relax. Let's sit here. Let's just mess with each other, make sure we get hydrated, stay hydrated. And because you didn't want to kill them with football, then it drains them too much. So we just had fun. We just sat back, played music, and just really relaxed.
That's how Coach Fran handled it. And exactly how long was that lightning delay?
I think we're good 90 minutes. I think from the real inception, the start of the halftime, we kind of knew that it was gonna spill over. And then as it started to spill over, you knew you were going to be there for a while, and you were just watching the radar. We were getting text From the director of football operations. He was generous in shooting us a text of keeping us abreast of the situation and the timelines that were going to occur. But I would have loved to been in that locker room. If Fran is saying and he's painting the picture of what that was, like I would have loved to have been in that locker room with music playing and a calm, jovial atmosphere. Like that's hard, right, for me to see, right? So I mean that is a testament of like knowing your guys, because the one thing you didn't want to do is get their attention diverted from the task at hand. And if that is the culture of what it is, and you can let them do their thing, hey, that's amazing. Where they can then just get dialed back into it. That's awesome.
Have you ever been in your playing days, Adam, experienced a delay, weather delay, lightning, snow, whatever it might be?
I've had a cancellation. So we played back in the day when it was the Redskins. We played down in D.C. or Maryland or whatever you want to call it now, wherever they're ending up. And we went down preseason games. So preseason is a little bit different. But what we were told is as soon as that Dan Snyder could keep the gate receipts, the game was canceled. And that's what we were told. Like our union rep and everybody was like, hey, yeah, we're done. And we're like, we're done? How does that work? Right? Like, do we have to come back? Now it's hard because a lot of those guys are fighting for a job, fighting for their life. But also when you look at it, it was like, oh, okay, we're done. We don't have to go back out there.
Wow. I remember years ago at the New York State Fair when they used to have the grandstand for concerts, and I don't remember the performer. It was a country performer, and it was downpour. It was same thing, maybe lightning off in the distance, and maybe back then they weren't as, if there was lightning, it was like, still that's way off. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so she came out and acoustically and just wanted to play some songs for the people who were, loyal enough to stay there in the stands. But the reality is, like, I think the contract said if you play like 4 songs, that counts as a show. So it's like, what?
Hey, know your contract, right? Slam it back on the desk and say, hey, I did my job. You gotta pay me.
Wow. Anyway, it's already at 9:37 here. Coming up, of course, at noon, it's the kickoff. And there's a question in here, Adam. I'm scrolling through the stream chat. I know the over-under, the last one I saw for today's game, you've got 2 very explosive offenses getting ready to kick off at noon. The last one I saw was 60.5 for the over-under. And Zach here in the stream chat wanted to know what you thought today's final score might be.
Wait, so what's the spread?
I don't know the spread, but the over under, like total is 60.5.
Oh.
The spread was, last I saw, Duke was actually favored by like 5 or something like that.
Yeah,
which I don't get.
Well, if you just go off of what they did against NC State and you see what that, they can be explosive offenses, but the thing that you got to look at is how are the defenses going to play. And Manny Diaz, he's been in a bunch of different places and he can coach ball, and they're going to bring the blitz and they're going to get after you. So, and then we've seen this Elijah Robinson, Fran Brown tandem of, they can do so. They haven't gotten to the quarterback yet, which is one that they need to be more efficient with. But 60 points, yeah, I could see 60 points. I could see.
So if you were actually going to make one of those wagers on any of the million different ways you can do that, would you go the over? Like it's going to be like both teams in the 30s?
That's why I like my money in my wallet.
I know.
My money in my. I'd rather buy. It was always my logic. When it came to that stuff, I'd rather buy something and know I'm getting something in return than just throw it in the money and see if the win takes it
Gotcha.
away.
I'll tell you, we'll take a break here, and we'll start to get. And probably the band is getting ready. Usually, right about now is when we start hearing the band over in the steps of Hendricks Chapel, getting ready to tune up and fire up into the tunes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, they're I mean, I can't see Hendricks Chapel through the view that I have. Yes, I can see over the people, but it's filled in nicely. So probably 2 to 3 deep. Right at the steps of Hendricks Chapel as the buses are going to pull up and you walk into the dome.
We'll take our break here, and we'll be right back. That is Adam Terry up in the quad. It's Gomez here from TK99 and TK105, the flagship station for Syracuse football.
TK99. TK105. Syracuse's
Hey, Paulie, is that Evan Williams thing giving out shots, or is it just giving out merch?
Save me a shot.
Right? Like, I got to rephrase that. If they were, then there'd be a much larger group around it. Mixers? Okay.
In the stream chat, someone says that today you look like Jackson from Bloodsport. Jackson from Bloodsport.
All right, let me Google
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I know Bloodsport, but I just
Yeah,
don't,
the same thing. I know the movie, but I don't know which character Jackson is. That's a Jean-Claude Van Damme one, isn't it?
Yeah, no, hands down. It's good. It's, solid flick.
And there was another reference here. Let me see.
Oh, yeah. No, I know this guy.
Would you concur then?
No? Roughly. Yeah. I mean, I got a better beard, but, he might have better hair. Who knows? I need the bandana. I should just do it in a bandana. So you can sell my advertising. We'll go 50-50, and I'll start wearing a bandana to this thing.
Wear bandana and then get some logo on it, a little NIL for you. Little something.
Yeah, and then we're going to, get the rice buckets, and we're going to start doing that, and then wrap our... Don't they wrap the wrist and put the glass on their knuckles?
Yes. Yeah, they do.
Like Paulie and I could do that.
Hold it up like that.
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport.
Yeah, here's the band.
There they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
Body's pressure points to recommend the mattress that's just right for you.
And anti-snore settings and beds with 2 different feels means you can sleep in the same room again.
Only at the One Big Mattress Store in Salve, Chinatown.
We are live and gearing up for the Syracuse Orange. It's our Syracuse Haulers pregame tailgate with Gomez and Adam Terry on TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
And live up at the quad where Adam Terry is, we could just start hearing the band as we were heading into the break there. And how's the crowd, Adam? They starting to gather on Hendricks Chapel?
Yeah, no, and it's fun to watch too. You can see a bunch of it is Parents Weekend, so you can see younger siblings and parents grabbing the younger sibling and running them across the quad. So yeah, it's fun to watch. I think there's starting to be a good atmosphere, pretty deep over at the quad walk. So yeah, I mean it's still early.
Yes.
I pulled into the lot that I normally park in. Usually 0 tailgaters, and I get out of my car, and there's a tent that is never there.
Wow.
So, whether that's they threw the university some money and got a nice parking spot, who knows? But that's the fun stuff is you're starting to see some new faces in here. I think Dave Jacobs might be a little upset. He's doing the kicking coaching, and he is running Fran Brown Jr. ragged snapping. But when Shirt World closed down there, you could be selling a lot more T-shirts today.
Speaking of kicking, special teams, obviously last week with that onside kick, and last night, a couple of the exciting college games from last night. Oregon State had a field goal attempt blocked. Special teams obviously important on any Saturday or Sunday afternoon or Friday night, as the case may be. Will we see a lot of any special onside kicks on the playbook for today, Adam?
Doubtful, right? Like, I think you can't keep going back to the well, nor do you want to really give up field position. When you look at what Clemson was doing, they're 5 yards off the line, so they're 15 yards back when they really should be about 2 yards, so 12 yards off of the ball, and then it's they were starting to bail. So it was a good call. They saw something that they liked. Now, is it a weekly occurrence? Probably not. But now people have to honor that, which then will allow for that kick cover unit. But if Jaden O can just pin him deep all the time, then we don't really have to worry about that.
As far as the atmosphere in the Dome today, Coach Fran joining the guys on Orange Nation this week talking about the atmosphere of the Dome when the place is jamming.
Want to be at a sold-out crowd where every seat's full, right, where it's hard to get in. That's where you want to be at because, after that game, usually when the home team is able to have, at least able to win one or more points, it's probably going to be a great night out in that town that night also. So this is a great atmosphere here in Syracuse, especially after a home win. I mean, it's extremely exciting outside. There's so many places to go out and eat here. There's so many places to go party, and it's a safe atmosphere also. But then when you look at Sunday mornings, breakfast all over the place. You go to church, you go to breakfast. It's a great atmosphere here in Syracuse. It's a lot going on, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, when a team is on a roll, it does impact the entire community like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more money in everybody's pocket when there's more people in the stands. So you've got hotel rooms. Yes, it's parents' weekend, so hotel rooms are hard to come by. But any other institution that is a successful, I mean, we're a historic program, but we haven't had the success as probably in the last 10 to 15 years if we can keep rolling this together, back-to-back campaigns. But, it's great for the community. It's good for everybody. There's more drinks being poured at night, and there's more French toast being slung in the morning, and that means that occupancy of hotels are up. It's a good thing. And Tim Leonard and I were talking about it in the box before we came out. Is just how do you keep that rolling, right? Like, you got to put a good product out there, and then there's some other variables over the years that we've let slip. And I don't think this is the world of. You have to have faith in it. You got to, if you build it, they will come, right? Like,
sure.
They have to continue to win because there are some. Hey, it happened last year. Oh, we haven't seen it back in my day. And that's great, right? Like, but when it does turn, you got to make sure that your grandchildren are with you. And you got to make sure that your son and your daughter and everybody is coming to a game because this is a great atmosphere. It's easy access. And now Fran just has to continue to build the product. And I think, that's what he's doing.
You mentioned when you arrived for parking. I was going to ask you about that because yesterday I went to pick up my parking pass up at the Lally Football Center up at Manley Fieldhouse. And I know they do it differently, but I was in there with a guy who was also picking up his parking pass, and he's, I think, a scout with the Cleveland Browns, happened to be picking up his stuff.
Yep.
But they handed two different passes. The one they gave to him, it's like, okay, that's good for this lot. And then the one they gave to me, they said, well, yours is like, and I didn't even heard the term before. It's like, oh, it's a floating, what does that mean? So do you know what that means? Like, where am I supposed to park?
I have zero clue. I'll give you mine. I'll run down. I'll trade you. We'll get you into the lot.
Yeah.
It'll make a lot of sense once you pull in there. But I mean that's the other thing is you're walking in there and there's a little bit of a buzz, right? Like Cleveland was in here, Buffalo's in here. I think there's 2 other teams that I saw on the list. But that's great too. They're coming in. They're looking at your players. And if he didn't get a better parking pass than you, then I know you're top notch.
I know,
right? Like you're not the bottom of the food chain. You're tippy top there. But if they were giving you the same, they should. They just should. Right? Just tell them who
nice
you are.
guy. Couldn't have been nicer. We wish that, he told me to have a blessed day. I mean, I can't be mad at a guy. Getting a better parking spot. He's with the Cleveland Browns, and he's of the size where it looks like he probably played for the Browns maybe at some point.
Well, yeah. And there might be a reason that he's in scouting now, too. So, short-lived. But, the other thing, you could put the old switcheroo. Oh, hey, they meant to give you this
That's the one. All right, let's swap here, and then you can go.
Or just
you can go to the floating thing.
They take bribes. They don't. Scouts in the NFL. They're not at the top of the food chain.
Hey, one of the best weekends in sports general, like not just for today for Syracuse and Duke, but you've got some big college games: Alabama, Georgia, and Penn State, Oregon, and Georgia Tech and Wake Forest, which is going to be a big ACC game later on today. But you've got the NFL, you've got the Ryder Cup going on in golf. You got the Major League Baseball races coming down to the wire. Just an exciting weekend and an exciting day all the way around, Adam.
Yeah, no, I mean a lot of opportunity, good weather. Like this is the quad's starting to buzz, right? I think it's a good feel, and you catch this, and then you go to your local watering hole, or you go home and you catch some good football on the rest of the day. So I think great opportunity for Syracuse to continue to build some success, but also, if you're not here, turn it on, right? I think that's
exactly.
I think that's a new John Wildhack phrase. Is turn the TV on.
Turn it on.
And the reasoning behind that is it's eyes on the game, right? So I think the revenue split and the way that it goes, not 100% polished on it, but it's dictated by television viewership. So, if you've got 4 TVs, just turn it on. I don't know if that'll actually work or whether it's in one household. So we'll try to kind of slant it in our direction so we get a little bit more money allocated towards us.
And if you can't watch it or go, obviously tune into TK99 and TK105 for you and Matt Park, as that game day coverage will start soon. And just clearing up a couple at the end here, someone had mentioned through the stream chat on QSportsTalk.com that today you look like Jackson from Bloodsport, and we looked it up, and I'd give that a thumbs up.
Yeah, Paulie and I later, we're going to wrap our hands and put them in glass, and we're just going to do a street fight in the quad.
Do it. And then some
MMA in the quad. Why not? Doing it everywhere else, right?
Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, somebody said that you also resemble today.
Well, I have a few more brain cells than he does, but,
I would like to think.
I think Hagrid I've gotten quite a bit when I go down to Florida in those, especially when you're in Harry Potter world.
Okay.
I get a lot of that. Like, I should just dress up in a cloak and just walk around the park and take pictures with people. $10 a picture.
I was going to go 20, but you're generous.
20? Okay, well, you're going to be my age.
Adam, thanks. We'll see you in the press box. If I can locate a place to park, I will see you here coming up in a couple hours.
Hey, you get that floating parking pass. You never know.
That's one of those things that sounds impressive.
You might be able to pull right up to the back gate with the floating parking pass.
It's like I fell for something. I fell for that floating parking pass.
Well, just call Paulie and Steve. I mean, they're the ones that are really tied in right now. You got Greenberg. You got West Durham.
That's right.
Like, damn.
Rich Eisen, all that stuff.
Big time.
All right, Adam.
Rich Eisen?
No, well, he was. Well,
what?
No, he wasn't on. But like Coach Fran was on with Rich Eisen. I'm overselling him. I'm overselling him.
I'm talking about Paulie. Yeah. Don't oversell Paulie and Steve.
Adam, we'll see you in a little bit.
I mean, they're big time.
Go Orange.
We'll see
Bye.
you guys.
TK9.
And we welcome you back inside Shaughnessy's Irish Pub at the Marriott downtown Syracuse. Getting you ready and set up for kickoff between Syracuse and Duke. Inside the JMA Wireless Dome, Giovanni Heater with you. Mike McAllister hits the road, of course, and he heads up to the quad. He'll hang out with Stephen Fonte for the final hour, and I got you covered up until then. We'll have you post-game as well right here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Syracuse. Such a massive game coming up inside the Dome. This feels like, in so many ways, a hinge game for both of these teams, but in particular for Syracuse football, right? You're coming off the heels of a massive road win at Clemson, first win in program history in Death Valley. Not only did you go win the football game, but it felt like you really took it to them. Were the aggressors right out of the gate? You go, boom, opening drive, touchdown, surprise onside kick, snag an extra possession. You don't even give Clemson the ball until you're already up 10-0, and then just kept your foot on the gas the entire way if you're Syracuse last week. I think it opened a lot of eyes. I don't think Syracuse is getting the love and appreciation and respect that maybe they deserve nationally and across the landscape of the ACC. But if you win today, then the respect is certainly earned when you look at Syracuse in the ACC conversation. Duke had high hopes coming into this season. They won 9 games a year ago, year one under Manny Diaz. It felt like not only did they have great offensive play last year, but they then upgraded at quarterback by introducing Darian Mensah into the mix, the quarterback transfer from Tulane. It felt like the defense was supposed to be very solid. That's kind of the notoriety of a Manny Diaz-led team. They sputtered out of the gate a little bit, a 2-2 start to the season, but they are now firing on all cylinders after a nice win to start conference play 1-0 last week at home against NC State. If Syracuse is able to win this game with its backup quarterback in Ricky Collins in front of a sold-out crowd in the Dome today, they insert themselves, in my opinion, in that conversation for the top 5 of the ACC. And at this point, this conference is beyond gettable. You just saw Virginia beat Florida State in Charlottesville last night. They were the 8th-ranked team in the country going to Charlottesville, and you had an epic battle, double overtime, where Virginia wins the game. So this conference is gettable. Miami and Georgia Tech, the 2 top teams, felt like Florida State was that one right there with them, maybe even above Georgia Tech. Now, where do you put Virginia in the conversation? But regardless, Syracuse and Duke, whoever wins this one, has a little bit of a spot in the driver's seat. I know we're not in an Atlantic and a Coastal Division setup anymore, but a little bit of a spot in the driver's seat to hit cruise control a little bit here and build some serious momentum and be recognized on the national and across the conference scale. So, hinge game in so many ways. You win this, it propels you into a whole different echelon across the conference. You lose this at home, I don't think it sets you back a ton. But again, it probably is like, oh, there's, same old Syracuse in a way. It's so unfortunate what happened with Steve Angeli, man. He was so good. If only they had Steve. If only they weren't playing with their backup quarterback in Ricky Collins, then we could seriously talk about Syracuse. So, again, you have the opportunity in front of you, if you're the Orange, to put yourself in a conversation that, dare I say, you haven't been in yet under Fran Brown. Remember last year, Syracuse wasn't ranked until they beat Miami in the final game of the regular season. Had a 9-win regular season, won 10 games with the bowl game, all of this. But all that conversation really didn't pick up. They didn't open eyes and earn respect, so to speak, nationally until they beat Miami, which was week 12. So have they been in that upper echelon, top 3, 4, 5 teams in the conference conversation, competing for maybe a spot in Charlotte for the ACC championship game under Fran Brown? I dare say that they haven't, but they can today if they win this game against Duke. The Dome's going to be absolutely packed. It's going to be absolutely absurd. I can't wait to see it. I don't think there's going to be an empty seat. You got family weekend in the 315. On top of it, you're coming off the heels of a road win at Clemson with a fan base that was already super bought in. Shaughnessy's is packed. We got a great crowd on hand here in front of us. And all these people are wearing orange and blue. You know they're heading up to the Dome. You don't go decked out like this if you're not heading up to the Dome after this thing. So this feels like not just a hinge game, one of the biggest games of the season. People had circled that North Carolina game on a Friday night, Bill Belichick in town. It's Halloween. Hard to sell people to skip Halloween and go up to the Dome when you got little kids and whatnot. Although Mike McAllister's son did just tell me moments ago that he's skipping Halloween to go up to the Dome. He's dressing up as the world's greatest Syracuse fan for Halloween and going up to the Dome. And I said, what an unbelievable decision. Probably would have made the same myself when I was his age. I think I want to say like 12. I could be wrong. And I told him, I was like, I will have a bowl of candy ready for you right here at Shaughnessy's when we get ready to do the pregame show against North Carolina. But I don't think that game is quite as big as this. I don't know that the Pittsburgh game is quite as big as this. Pitt's a big game. Don't get me wrong. And it's another home game in the Dome. Pitt's good. It just feels like this Duke game, because of where it lies in the season, right off that win over Clemson, both teams undefeated in conference play, what it could set up for the rest of the year. It feels like this is a colossal game for Syracuse in the Dome. And you want to talk about, what does it mean for Duke? What does a game like this mean for the Blue Devils? It's a fair question, and I think it means much of the same. If they win this game and all of a sudden, say their defense starts playing a little bit better, I think people are looking at a 2-0 in conference play Duke team as they might be a contender. There's a national show this week on the ACC network. Roddy Jones and company talked about who they think the fourth best team in the ACC is. This was before Florida State had lost to Virginia. And they talked about Virginia, and they talked about Duke. They did not talk Syracuse. How, after Syracuse went and took it to Clemson, could have won that game by more than the 13 points that they did, and they were 17.5-point underdogs? How they didn't mention Syracuse puzzles me to this day. We talked about that throughout the week. Tim Leonard talked about it on his show Drive Time from 5 to 6 weeknights. Stephen Pauly talked about it on Orange Nation. How Syracuse was not in that conversation, I don't know. But you certainly will be if you beat Duke today. And Duke's already there. Duke's already in that conversation. So a win for the Blue Devils to go on the road in ACC play in a hostile, sold-out JMA Wireless Dome and win this game. If you're Duke, it would do wonders for Manny Diaz in that program. No question about it. We got an awesome show for you for the rest of the way. We're going to talk impact performers on the other side of the break down who I think could stand out for Syracuse and play a huge hand in possibly winning this football game. We're going to talk injury report, of course, as we always do, brought to you by Krause Hospital. I had the opportunity earlier this week to sit down with Justice Ross Simmons, star Syracuse wide receiver who has just continued to dazzle and make unbelievable catches. Feels like he's a guy that's due for a touchdown week after week. Had a chance to sit down and chat with him. He will join the show. We'll play that for you, and you can get a little bit of an inside scoop on the You Got Moss stuff, on the big win at Clemson, on how you turn the page and look forward to Duke and stay locked in on the season, on how you go through a quarterback change from Steve Angeli to Ricky Collins after 4 weeks of the season. So much to unpack there with Justice Ross Simmons. We'll talk ACC scoreboard, and we'll look across the landscape of the ACC. And, of course, we will make predictions for Duke and Syracuse inside the Dome. So don't go anywhere. We got a really fun hour set up for you before we send it to Steve and Mike up on the quad just outside the Dome. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on your Saturday as we get you set and ready for Duke and Syracuse. I'm Giovanni Heater. This is Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Syracuse. Good. Oh, okay. I'll try not to lean in anyway. Okay. Yeah. You got it. Oh, I'm not sure. What's up, chat? How we doing? Chat? Chat, feel free to drop any questions you want answered about the game. Andrew Monaco tuning in on a Cuse game day, even though A&M's got Auburn today. I'm honored. Our pregame coverage rolls on live in downtown Syracuse from Shaughnessy's Irish Pub at the Marriott here in downtown Syracuse. Giovanni Heater with you, taking you all the way up until 11 o'clock when we send it to Steve and Mike on the quad just outside the dome, and we get you set and ready for Duke and Syracuse inside the dome. Sold out JMA Wireless crowd, and it just feels like in so many ways this is a hinge game for both Duke and the Orange. Winner of this game inserts itself towards the top tier of the Atlantic Coast Conference and sets them up for the rest of this season. Syracuse goes on the road to SMU next week. So if you can get another home ACC win under your belt before you go do that, again, SMU played in the conference title game a week ago, you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling pretty good if you're Syracuse. It's time to talk some impact performers that I think could play a difference in the game today for Syracuse. And to reset the table on the storylines, if you're just joining us, Syracuse has faced a large bit of adversity through the first 4 weeks of the season. And adversity is kind of our our key word to the show. Syracuse starting quarterback Steve Angeli, the Notre Dame transfer, he now embarks on this new journey of adversity after undergoing season-ending surgery on a torn Achilles that he suffered against Clemson in the second half last week. He was leading the nation in passing, heading into that unfortunate moment. He's now sidelined for the rest of the 2025 campaign, and the keys are given to Ricky Collins. Ricky Collins has fought through so much adversity in his college career to this point. Remember, a four-star who started his career at LSU, learned for 2 years under Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Jaden Daniels, and now possible Heisman contender in Garrett Nussmeier with the Tigers. He enters the portal. He comes to Syracuse. He's Fran Brown's guy. He's the one that's going to take over this SU program after Kyle McCord leaves for the NFL. He has a great spring. He's named the starting quarterback after spring. Steve Angeli enters the portal. Syracuse has to sit Ricky Collins down and tell him, we're going to bring this kid in, and you guys are going to compete now for the starting quarterback job in the fall. Angeli just edges out Ricky Collins and wins the starting quarterback job, becomes Syracuse's starting quarterback for the 2025 season. And you have to think the things that are going through a kid like Ricky Collins' head, who came here for this new start and gets that unfortunate news that he doesn't win the starting job after already being given it after the spring semester. But he stayed ready. He stayed prepared. Fran Brown said that he did an unbelievable job of being a great teammate, remaining locked in, being ready for the moment where if his number is called, he can do a serviceable job and lead this team to victory and be a huge leader inside the locker room. Well, now his number's called. Steve's out. It's Ricky Collins time. It's the Ricky Collins show here in Syracuse. And this kid's a former four-star. I don't think you're a former four-star that ends up at a place like LSU if you don't have some serious talent. And Jeff Nixon has set up his quarterbacks for success. Kyle McCord led the nation in passing last year. Steve Angeli through 4 weeks was leading the nation in passing this year. And now it's Ricky Collins' time to fit into that system. But when you want to talk impact performers, I think the key to success for Syracuse is the way that they set things up around him, and they have the personnel to do just that. Take the pressure off Ricky. Put the pressure on the other guys. If everybody can step up 5%, instead of it being this marginal, vast difference between Steve and Ricky, if everyone can step up 5% and make up for the loss of Steve, whatever gap there was between Steve and Ricky, and prop Ricky up for success this weekend and the rest of the way, I think you feel really good about things if you're the Orange. So some key players that are going to play an impact into this. It starts with Yassine Willis, starting running back out of the backfield for the Orange. He's been unbelievable. The kid's a bowling ball, and he's only a sophomore. He looks like one of the biggest and most physical running backs in the ACC, and it's his second year of college football. Yassine Willis is a dog. D-A-W-G, dog. Not D-O-G, not D-O-double-G, D-A-W-G, dog. Yassine Willis. Run the rock. They've been effective doing it. Yassine Willis was a monster, particularly in the first half against Clemson, averaged 8.6 yards a carry, had over 100 yards on the ground at halftime in Death Valley last week. Give it to him. And on top of it, Jeff Nixon's kid, Will Nixon, scored a touchdown in that game and was very effective running the ball as well. So the running back room, that's where it starts. You can set up the pass by running the rock, and you can slow the game down by running the rock. Impact players outside of that, though, it's this elite wide receiver room. And it's hard not to say that they're elite. They've ended up on ESPN's You Got Moss segment on Sunday NFL Countdown 3 times in the last 2 weeks, folks. 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I will say one of them was an interception by Davian Kerr last week, ends up on You Got Moss. But still, it was Justice Ross Simmons on the opening drive last week, goes up, high points to football, unbelievable catch. And then the week before, it was of course, Darryl Gill Jr. with the You Got Moss. He ended up with the number 1 spot, got the gloves. Lean on this wide receiver room. Jonte Cook, even though he hasn't been featured on You Got Moss, might be the most effective wide receiver in the entire ACC up to this point. What he's been able to do production-wise in the passing game. Unbelievably fast, tremendous in the slot, can catch the long ball in stride, but can also make you miss, can be so effective in the short intermediate game. really a jack of all trades in the slot for Syracuse is Jonte Cook. You can lean on your tight end. Dan Villari has been huge. So many people begged the question, what does this tight end room look like without Oronde Gadsden, who's now playing for the Los Angeles Chargers, an undefeated team in the National Football League with one of the top offenses in pro football? What does it look like without him? Villari has been up to the task. He's been a great pass catcher. He's been a solid blocker. And he was one of the go-to targets for Steve Angeli. Lean on your weapons because Syracuse has an embarrassment of riches in weapons. I dare say some of the best skill position players Syracuse has had and the deepest set of skill position players Syracuse has had in a long time. So prop Ricky up for success. That very well could be the difference. Had the opportunity earlier this week to sit down with Justice Ross Simmons, who we had just mentioned. He was the number 2 pick on You Got Moss last week. He's had an unbelievable season so far for the Orange. Number 12 in navy blue today. Clearly spent a little too much time down in Blacksburg the last 4 years. Maroon rolls off the tongue a little bit easier as of late. Had an opportunity to sit down with him, talked Ricky Collins, talked quarterback change through 4 weeks, talked You Got Moss, talked so many different things. Great conversation, great kid. Can't wait for you to listen to it. So here's this short conversation with Justice Ross Simmons from a week ago. And when we return, we'll talk so much more Syracuse and Duke. Here's JRS from earlier this week. All right, welcome in, Cuse fans, to our pregame report. Giovanni Heater alongside Syracuse senior wide receiver Justice Ross Simmons. Justice, you guys are off to a very strong start this season, ripping off 3 consecutive wins here. What's been the biggest key to this team's early success this season?
Our early success came from our connection on offense and, just keep fighting all 4 quarters throughout the game.
Awesome. First win at Clemson in Death Valley in program history this past Saturday. It felt like this team went down there with a relentless edge and really punched Clemson in the mouth, right? What was the mindset all week long heading into that game for this team?
We know Clemson was a very good team, but as our coach said, we were playing for the man above. And, I went out there swinging. My coach said if we go out there and fight and take the life out of them, they're not going to want to fight back. And that's what we did.
So you go on that opening drive, and you have that awesome 50-50 ball, go up and catch it in the corner of the end zone touchdown. And you end up on ESPN's You Got Mossed. It's the second week in a row Syracuse has had a player on there. Your boy Daryl Gill was on there last week. And then also there were 2 of you on there this week. What's the feeling of that when you end up on a special like that and the name Randy Moss is talking about Justice Ross Simmons?
It's a exciting feeling to get recognized by Randy Moss. He's a great receiver. He was a great receiver. Shoot, one of the best to ever play the game. And just to get recognized by him just keeps a chip on my shoulder. I want to be in his shoes when he get older. When I get older, actually. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Now, did you watch him growing up? Who was your go-to receiver watching when you were growing up?
Well, growing up, I watched A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and stuff. Of course, I watched some of Randy Moss's tape too, but when I was growing up, it was really A.J. Brown and Julio Jones.
What's going through your head during that play as you're going up and high pointing that football in the end zone?
I knew that I had the one-on-one matchup, and we were talking about all week. When I get the one-on-one matchup, just take full advantage of that, and that's exactly what I did. I took advantage of the one-on-one matchup, and Steve threw a great ball and gave me that 50-50 chance to go get it.
You're a part of a very elite wide receiver room, I think it's fair to say at this point, when you end up on specials like that, right? What's it like playing alongside such talented players, and how do you guys push each other week in and week out?
Week in, week out, we just keep talking to each other. It get hard around here. People get banged up, but we all got an end goal of going to the NFL. So we just make sure we remind each other and if someone's not doing as good at a play or a week, we just let them know where we remind him of where he's trying to go. We're trying to get to the league, so keep fighting, and hopefully we get back on track.
So Steve goes out with the Achilles injury, of course, on Saturday. It's breaking news, and it's next man up. And Ricky Collins has such an awesome pedigree in his own right. What's your relationship with Ricky? Because he's actually been around here a little bit longer than Steve.
Yeah, I have actually a great relationship with Steve. With Ricky. Ricky got here in spring, and we played the whole spring together, and we built a real good connection. It's just that going into the season, Ricky, unfortunately, he got beat out by Steve, and so I had to build a connection with Steve. But I felt very confident in Ricky because I already have that connection with him. Like, as you can see, when Ricky first came in, he threw me that ball, it was a touchdown. So, it just shows that the connection is still there. But we're just going to keep, me and Ricky are just going to keep building on our connection and do different stuff because he hasn't been in recently, but he's back now, so got to keep going.
What is it about his skill set that gives you so much confidence in his ability to go lead this team?
Ricky, he can use his legs. So if things is not going well, I have full faith in Ricky to make a play with himself with his legs. He's a playmaker. He can run with the ball. He can throw it. He can throw the ball on the run. He can do a lot of things with the ball. So that's just going to open up our offense even more.
A couple more questions here for you, Justice. Such a big emotional win down at Clemson on Saturday. How do you guys turn the page and shift your focus to Duke in the Dome for this next week?
Well, we're going to put the Clemson one behind us and move forward. Every week's a big week for us, you know what I'm saying, because we're in it. So that way, when we go out there and play Duke, we're just going to play to our best of our abilities. We're not going to play down to our competition. We're always just going to keep going and just put our foot on their necks.
You were around last year. You saw what the Dome can be like, especially on that Saturday evening against Miami. The place is absolutely rocking, right? They call it the Loud House for a reason. It's a sellout on Saturday with the Blue Devils in town. What is it like playing in the Dome when it's that packed and there's not an empty seat in the house?
Out on the field, you just got to stay a little bit more focused. You're not going to be able to hear certain things, so you got to make sure you really use your eyes and communicate with your brother that's out there with you. And make sure we're all on the same page because it's going to be loud out there. And as long as we are on the same page and go out there execute, there's nobody that's going to be able to stop us.
Justice, really appreciate the time, my man. Best of luck out there.
Thank you.
All right, that's Justice Ross Simmons. I'm Giovanni Heater. Back after this, you're listening to Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Syracuse.
Really? Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Slash is, he is unbelievably good. Don't get me wrong, there's a long list of unbelievable guitar players, but some of his solos and stuff are incredible. Yeah. Really? Okay. Slash. Awesome. No, I got it for Christmas a couple years ago from my parents. Literally a painting of Slash. It's very colorful, and the artist is such a good guy. He's leaning against a lamp, sitting on the ground with one foot out like this, and he's holding his last ball, and there's a tin bottle on the ground, a table and he's sitting like this, and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and the smoke goes up, and it's just a really well done painting. It might have. I almost want to see if I can find a picture of it. What's up, chat? How we doing? I know I should be doing it from the Captain Morgan's pirate ship. How much fun would that be? That would be a blast. I would be down for that. Right?
I can't believe they've constructed a pirate ship out there. They got quite the setup. You guys got to come down and check it out sometime. Me and Jim are having a great time. Yeah, they do a really good job over here at Shaughnessy's of literally throwing a party for the game. Like, it's a party. It's awesome. Ryan's here. Appreciate tuning in while here. Appreciate you being here, Ryan. Interacting with the chat is so fun. Yeah, right? Jim and I are just chatting legendary guitarists like Slash, Guns N' Roses. Trying to find a picture of this painting. Oh, here it is. I did take a picture of it. This is it. Isn't that sweet? Yeah. Actually, I'll flip it around. I don't know how this came up. We're talking about legendary guitarist Slash. That's a painting. Oh, because they were playing Welcome to the Jungle, the live band. That's a painting that I have of Slash. It's my favorite guitarist. So I got that and a Frank Sinatra album thing, which is cool. Which is, I know, very different genre, but yeah. I love that kind of music too. Yep. There you go.
This is the RomanoCars.com pregame show.
Pre-game coverage rolling on for Syracuse and Duke in front of a sold-out JMA Wireless Dome. Giovanni Heater with you, taking you all the way up until 11 o'clock before we send it to the quad with Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister. So excited for this awesome marquee matchup, hinge game in the ACC between Syracuse and Duke. Just feels like the Orange have the opportunity to prop themselves up and set up the rest of the season. If you told a Syracuse fan, with the national narrative of how difficult the schedule was, you were playing 5 different college football playoff teams, technically 4, but Miami was right there, right? And you were playing them all on the road and so many nationally ranked opponents in the preseason, this, and that. If you told them coming into this year that you were going to have a chance to be 4-1 after the Duke game in the Dome, I think everyone would have been like, we'll take that. What did they do? Go win at Clemson? It's exactly what they did. Took it to Clemson last week in Death Valley, set them up for the rest of the year, an opportunity to keep the train moving. The Elmira Express, if you will. Ernie Davis, keep that moving today if they can take down Duke in the Dome. Let's take a glance around the ACC. I always do love to sit back and take a look at the ACC scoreboard because this is a fun week in the conference, and it really got turned on its head last night. Such a thriller, 2-overtime thriller in Charlottesville where number 8 Florida State gets beat by Virginia. And now you got to look at the Cavaliers as a serious competitor in the Atlantic Coast. 46-38, the final score. Shootout. Cinema of a football game. Unbelievable game all the way throughout. Virginia jumps out to this 14-0 lead. Florida State responds, gets it even at 14 all. Florida State, after not scoring a point in the first quarter, drops 21 in the second quarter to tie things up 21 all at the halftime break and then just battle back and forth. 7 points apiece. Touchdown for each team in the third. Touchdown for each team in the fourth. Overtime. Florida State with a field goal, a controversial juggle. Was it a catch? Was it not a catch? Upon review, ruled no catch for Florida State, what would have been a touchdown. And then Virginia with a game-sealing interception. Castellanos, pressure comes off the blitz, has to just throw it up from like the 30-yard line on 4th down, intercepted in the end zone. The field storming might have been the craziest field storming I have ever seen. because at Virginia, there's no restraint. The student section is up on what they call the hill. Zero restraint. No guardrails, no steps, no nothing. It's just literally a hill of grass in front of the scoreboard. And as soon as that ball was intercepted, before the refs even waved him down, they stormed the field. Squirrel White, the wide receiver for Florida State, was on the ground. I'm actually concerned for his well-being today because it appeared that he got trampled in the mix. I mean, it was unbelievable, the scene in Charlottesville, and good for them. Good for them. I'm an alum of Virginia Tech. I don't know how much I can sit here and say good for the Cavaliers, but, it's a nice win for them. And I do think they have the most, going into last night, underrated quarterback in the entire ACC, who really has been such a key acquisition for Tony Elliott and company, maybe a job-saving acquisition in Chandler Morris. He balled out last night. He propels Virginia to victory, and the Cavaliers kind of turned the conference on its head, handing top 10 Florida State its first loss of the season. Looking across the rest of the ACC here, of course, at noon, you got your Duke-Syracuse matchup on the ACC network. Later on in the day, a couple of really nice games, but finishing out the noon slate, 16 Georgia Tech on the road at Wake Forest. Wake has had a tough start to the year. Can they keep things tight with Georgia Tech? Yellow Jackets are 13.5-point favorites, so an interesting one in Winston-Salem. I think Georgia Tech's really good. And if they can kind of beat up on them, move up a little bit in the rankings, maybe. But Georgia Tech, I picked them to play in the ACC title game and make the playoffs. They're well on their way to doing so with what they've done so far this year. How about in the noon spot, Louisville at Pittsburgh? Fascinating game. Fascinating game. Feels like a must-win in a way for Eli Holstein and Pitt if they want to be propped up as one of these teams to compete for the conference. Syracuse is going to get Pitt in a handful of weeks here in Syracuse later on in October. So something to be on the lookout for. Syracuse does not play Louisville this year. But again, Louisville still hanging around in that conversation. I think Miller, Moss, and company have been a little bit underwhelming, but they're winning games. They're 3-0. And sometimes that's all that matters. So fascinating game in the noon slot between Louisville and Pitt. That's in the 4-1-2. Later on in the afternoon, you go to the 3:30 slot. Cal at Boston College in Chestnut Hill. You got San Jose State on the road at Stanford. At 7 o'clock, you got Virginia Tech at NC State. Fascinating game. Hokies 1-3 on the year. Brent Pry out. Philip Montgomery, the interim head coach for the Hokies. So NC State 9.5-point favorites. Remember, that's an NC State team that lost in a shootout in Durham against Duke, who Syracuse will play. That was last week. And that rounds things out for the ACC. So handful of buys. No Miami this week when you look at the ACC and some of the top competitors. So some good games. Nevertheless, I think, honestly, besides last night's Florida State-Virginia game, which everyone had circled, I think the biggest game of the week is either Duke-Syracuse or Louisville-Pitt. So definitely be on the lookout for that as you enjoy your college football Saturday. No question. There are some other big games nationally going on today as well. Huge games on the national landscape. Week 5 might be the best slate of the season, in all honesty. Week 1 was awesome, but week 5 is like different. Like if you were planning a fall wedding, if you were thinking pumpkin picking, apple picking on the final weekend of September, this was not the weekend to do that if you're a big college football fan. You got Alabama at Georgia. It's turned into one of the greatest rivalries in college football. Awesome game last year. That one was in Tuscaloosa. This time the rivalry turns to Athens. Georgia able to win in Knoxville against Tennessee. They're number 5 in the country. Alabama lost to Florida State. They're 17th. But since then, they've really been firing on all cylinders. Ty Simpson has been surgical. Who wins that one? Who's propped up in the SEC? And then I think the biggest game of the week has to be the whiteout at Penn State. Oregon rolls into Happy Valley. College game day is there. Drew Aller going at it with Dante Moore. Moore looks like probably the Heisman frontrunner. Maybe Fernando Mendoza has things to say about that. I do think John Mateer was the frontrunner before now. The hand surgery situation at Oklahoma, he's going to miss some time. Hopefully they get him back for Red River. College football deserves to have him back for Red River in a couple of weeks, but when you miss time, it's hard to win the Heisman, just plain and simple, right? So I think Dante Moore is probably that guy. Can Oregon roll into the whiteout and win it, or does James Franklin finally win the big game? Definitely fascinating. One of the biggest games of the year when you look at the national landscape of college football. And that's far from the last bit of big matchups, right? Last night you had TCU and Arizona State. Arizona State completes the comeback over number 24 TCU. Gets back towards the driver's seat. I think it's still Texas Tech's conference for now in the Big 12, but gets back towards that upper echelon with a big win over a ranked TCU team in Tempe. Arizona State, a playoff team a year ago, winners of the Big 12. You haven't had a repeat champ in the Big 12 in like 8 years. Arizona State trying to change that. So a big win for them last night. You got Ohio State, number 1 team in the country, going to Washington. The decibel record has been set at that stadium. The Husky fans come out in droves. It's one of the toughest places to play in the country, one of the most underrated places to play in the entire country. Can they make things incredibly difficult for Julian Sayin, who really has not played in an atmosphere like that? They played Texas. That was at home in the shoe. He has not played on the road in a place like he's going to face Washington in at their place in Seattle. So very fascinating game. Does Washington have an upset in them? We'll see. Big game in the Big Ten. You got a top 25 tilt between USC and Illinois. I mean, that's like one of the sleepier games, and it's still a top 25 matchup in the Big Ten. So, again, the slate of games this weekend is through the roof. A lot of exciting football. No game I am more excited for, though, than this noon kick between Duke and Syracuse inside the Dome. Time for a short break. When we come back, we're going to make our predictions. We're going to break down who's going to win this thing and why between the Blue Devils and the Orange inside the Dome before we send it off to the quad for Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister. You're listening to Cuse Sports Talk right here on ESPN Syracuse. Sweet. How we doing, chat? How we feeling? Jen says Cuse by a million. Calvin Russell, yeah, he's going to be at the game. Huge day for recruiting. That's a good point. I will talk about that. That is a huge part of the day today. No question about it. Any questions, chat, before we do our final segment? Happy to answer any questions or topics of conversation here. Let them rip. We'll get you taken care of. We see Chris Robinson in the YouTube chat. Yeah, that's right. So Virginia lost to NC State in a non-ACC game because they scheduled it as a non-conference game, not part of the ACC schedule, so it's not a conference loss. Doesn't count in the standings for Virginia. So that team is undefeated in conference play. It's a really good point, Chris, and it's unfortunate. Good for the Cavaliers, I guess. Of course, I've heard of local rapper design fam ties. That's my guy. That's my guy. Chris Garofalo always bringing the bars. Good morning, Super Cat. Let's go Orange. Glad you could join us. Where are you watching the game from today? Does SU get ranked for the win? I don't think so. Duke's not ranked. And again, it's just that logo doesn't play the same. If this was a 4-1 Notre Dame, sure, but I don't think so. Final segment here from Shaughnessy's Irish Pub at the Marriott downtown Syracuse as we get you set up and ready for Duke and Syracuse in front of a sold-out crowd at the JMA Wireless Dome. Giovanni Heater with you. After this, at 11 o'clock, we will toss it over to the quad where Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister will take you all the way up until kickoff. What an awesome game. What an awesome opportunity on the table for Syracuse. A team that's fought through so much adversity throughout the week, right? And even the season, you stumbled out of the gate, kind of spotted Tennessee 17 points with all the hype around the opener. Never could dig yourself out of the hole. If you're Syracuse, lose the opener and then bounce back. And things didn't look great against UConn, but was able to turn it on in the fourth quarter. A resilient overtime, come from behind win for the Cuse. And that's when things started rolling. Blow Colgate out of the water. Take this offensive show on the road with the nation's leading passer, take it to Clemson, win a huge game in Death Valley for the first time in program history, but your quarterback goes out. Season-ending Achilles surgery. It's Ricky Collins' time. Your four-star quarterback transferring in from LSU now has the opportunity to take the keys and drive this Ferrari of a Jeff Nixon offense that's proven to this point with what Kyle McCord had done and what Steve Angeli was doing so far this season. So a massive opportunity on the table for Syracuse. A win propels them towards that upper echelon of the ACC. They will try and do just that against a very good Duke team inside the Dome today. This is a Duke team that struggles on defense, susceptible to the big play, gets carved up in the short intermediate screen pass game, but can get after the quarterback. Up there in the sack totals, and they have a really, really impressive edge rusher leading their defensive roster as well. That's a notable guy you got to look out for. And Vincent Anthony Jr., he has 5 sacks and a forced fumble on the season. Duke's offense, prolific. One of the better quarterbacks in the conference in Tulane transfer, Darian Mensah. They can create the big play. They can hit you in the run game, but it's really through the air that they can make you pay and put up a ton of points. Worst scoring defense in the ACC. One of the best scoring offenses in not just the ACC, but top 25 in the entire country. So definitely something to be on the lookout for with the Blue Devils in the Dome. Time to make our predictions. Time to predict this marquee game, this hinge game between Duke and Syracuse. It's our Liverpool Pool and Spa Dream Outcome. Don't just dream it, live it with Liverpool Pool and Spa. Give me Syracuse to win a big game in the Dome, 28-24, the final score. I think a huge key to this game is going to be slowing down the game. Prop Ricky Collins up for success. Keep the ball out of a guy like Darian Mensah's hands as much as possible. You do that by running the ball. You do that by slowing down the game. And in that case, I don't know that Syracuse gets to 30 points, but I don't know if they have to. I do think Syracuse has the much better defense. They've created turnovers at opportune times, particularly. The one thing they have not done a ton is get after the quarterback, and that is the one thing Duke has done well. But I do think Syracuse has the better defense. Their cornerbacks have graded out phenomenally. Demetrius Samuel Jr., one of the top graded corners in the country, best in the ACC. The kid is 17 years old. Their safeties have been really good. Deuce Chestnut. And, of course, Devin Grant. You look at the injury report brought to you by Krause Hospital. Deuce Chestnut, questionable, thinking he's going to play. Devin Grant's been back to full health. Like, things are looking good. If you're Syracuse, you're not really without anybody besides Steve Angeli, of course, today. Yassine Willis, running back, healthy. And I think the key is going to be slowing the game down, letting the defense do its thing when it's time, and then leaning on those impact skill position players to take the pressure off of Ricky Collins at quarterback. I think he has a good game. I do think, like Steve, remember Steve, like, yes, he led the nation in passing through 3 weeks going into that Clemson game and tore it up against Clemson before getting hurt. He sputtered out of the gate a little bit, and it took him a couple of games to really get his feet underneath him. And then once he was humming, he was humming. You could see that with Ricky. It's just these guys don't have a ton of college football experience. Remember, they were backups at both Notre Dame and LSU, respectively. So it takes a minute to get accustomed and get comfortable. I think you could see that a couple of growing pains with him today. You hope it doesn't result in like turnovers, but you could see a situation where he's got to lean on other guys. But if everybody can play 5% above what they've played, Yassine Willis, these receivers, the offensive line, and prop him up for success, I really like Syracuse to win this game 28-24. Duke has been very poor in turnovers. They're -2 in the turnover margin this year. They're susceptible to coughing up the football and giving possessions away. I think Syracuse takes advantage of that because they've created a lot of turnovers this year. And I think Syracuse wins the game 28-24 inside the Dome. Have a ton of fun. If you're coming up to the Dome, have a ton of fun. Enjoy it. It's going to be awesome. Of course, it's a sellout crowd. It's Parents Weekend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. For Jim, my awesome producer, for Matt, for David, for Paul, pushing the buttons behind the scenes, I'm Giovanni Heater saying so long from Shaughnessy's Irish Pub. After the break, we send it to the Quad, where Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister take over. You're listening to Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Syracuse.
We're talking Eagles-Bucks today, right?
Paul, during the breaks, you're just going to have a silent quad shot.
We are 1 hour away from kickoff between Syracuse and Duke. First home game of the conference schedule. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you right up until 12 o'clock. And, you know, Mike, when the schedule was first released, we all focused on the road games and the opponents and how difficult the road schedule was. We kind of overlooked the home schedule, but I tell you what, this is all of a sudden a pretty important game in the conference. We saw Virginia knock off Florida State last night. They're 2-0 in conference play, the only 2-0 team in the conference right now. There are three others that could move to 2-0 today. Georgia Tech and then Syracuse and Duke are the two others. So this is all of a sudden a pretty important game for Syracuse, for Duke, and really for the ACC.
Yeah, it's massive in all of those respects. And to your point, I don't think anyone thought coming into the year that Syracuse-Duke was going to be a marquee matchup within the ACC, and especially at this point in the season. And yet here we are. And I think part of that was because not very many people expected Syracuse to beat Clemson last week. And they went in and did it in dominant fashion. And so it sets up a huge game here where you can really give yourself some momentum if you can pull this one off.
We will get into that Clemson game here in a moment, but I want to start with what is the big story today, and that is first career start, obviously, for Ricky Collins. Steve Angeli going down with that Achilles injury last week. Had surgery on Monday, season-ending surgery. He's out for the next 6 to 9 months. This is Ricky Collins' team this year. How much of a learning curve do you think there will be for him? Again, let's keep in mind, he has not started a game since he was a senior in high school back in 2022. Sat out the 2 years at LSU behind Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, was behind Steve Angeli here. Now he gets the opportunity today to start. How much do you think there's going to be some growing pains with him out there?
You certainly expect there to be some, right? We saw it when Steve Angeli started in his first game, and he had some of those issues against Tennessee where, you know, there were a couple of turnovers, a couple of mistakes, and he got more comfortable as the games went along, and it was really too bad that he went down when he did, because he really felt like he was coming into his own and really felt comfortable out there and within the offense, etc. The benefit that Ricky Collins has is he's been on the sideline for 3 games speaking with Angeli when Angeli comes off the field and they're discussing, what did you see, what happened. He's seen it. He was here in the spring, and so you hope that all of those factors minimize some of that learning curve, but I think we all feel pretty good about the way that Jeff Nixon can call plays and come up with a game plan, and all of that will help as well.
You know, we've heard that Kyle McCord reached out to
Ricky,
thank you. I was going to say Steve Angeli. He probably just reached out to Steve as well, but he reached out to Ricky Collins this week. Steve has reached out to Ricky Collins this week and actually returned to practice a couple nights ago, and so they've been together talking. You know, Fran said, we've got your back. His teammates certainly have his back, so he's got the support system in place, but it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the whole situation today. Sold-out crowd, big game, first start in 3 years. It's also interesting just to hear the fans talk about this, right? You know, in the spring, it was Ricky's our guy, and then all of a sudden Steve Angeli was brought in and Steve won the job, and then it was, well, Steve's our guy, and then the first half against UConn was ugly offensively, and everybody's like, let's put Ricky back in, and then Steve figured it out in the fourth quarter in overtime, and that game has been brilliant since, and now all of a sudden people are like, oh no, Steve's not there, now Ricky has to go, right? I mean,
the roller coaster, right?
It really has been a roller coaster where it seems odd, the fan reaction. They wanted him, then they didn't want him, then they wanted him, then they didn't want him, and here we are, and ready or not, it's Ricky Collins' turn to shine.
Well, you got him now, But yeah, that's kind of the way that things go with the fans, right? Is the most popular player on the team is the backup quarterback, right? That's the old adage. But listen, it's when Angeli was kind of going through some of those growing pains, it's kind of a natural reaction to be like, all right, I'm frustrated, throw someone else in there, it can't be worse than this. But I think we've learned that Fran Brown and the way that this program's culture is with him at the helm is there's loyalty there. There isn't an overreaction to some struggles, right? It's working through it. And that's kind of where they're at now. But I think the fact that he continued to have Ricky's back when Steve Angeli won the job, and that he does have that support system that you mentioned now that he's taking over for an injured Angeli, all of that I think helps with the team moving on and getting used to a new quarterback midseason.
We had Matt Park on the Orange Nation radio show on Thursday, and he brought up the point. I said, is the offense going to look any different in your opinion? Because we asked Fran Brown, and he said no, and I would expect him to say no. I asked Matt for his opinion, and he said, no, I don't think the offense is going to look different, but what you might see early on, and I completely agree with this point, what you might see early on is some scripted plays, maybe some quick hitters to get him comfortable, some quick slants, or quick hitters swinging it out on a wide receiver screen, something like that, just to get him comfortable, complete a few passes, see if he can pick up some yards, move the chains. I don't know that he's throwing a 50-yard bomb on the first play of the game. I think they may build in on that first drive, especially as Matt said, and I agree with him, they may build in some easier type plays that he's comfortable with to help him settle down.
Yeah, I think that's the smart approach, but at the same time, would you be completely shocked if Fran decided to just throw a curveball and go deep? I'm not expecting it, but it shouldn't catch us totally by surprise. The other part of this, too, is if you watch Duke play, they have struggled on some of those screen passes and the quick outs and the quick slants and the swing passes to the running back. Those have hurt Duke's defense and have gone for big yardage, a lot of running after the catch. And so going with some of those quick passes does a couple of things. One, you're trying to take advantage of a weakness of Duke's defense. Then to your point, you're trying to get Ricky Collins to sort of take a deep breath and just, this is football. I know it's been a while since you've done this, but it's football. You know how to play and kind of take a deep breath and just focus on the task at hand.
You mentioned the big plays, and we talked about that last week, that explosive plays were going to be so important against Clemson and limiting those explosive plays. And Syracuse did that. The SU defense, I believe, only gave up 3 explosive plays of 20 or more yards. They did a really nice job keeping Clemson in front of them. Duke thrives on big plays as well. Duke is averaging better than 7 yards per play. And as you said, the Duke defense is giving up big plays. So, not to give too much away here on our show, we'll get to our keys to the game later, but that may be a big key today, which defense is able to limit the others, big play ability. Going back to last week and the Clemson game, you just said a moment ago, don't be surprised if Fran throws it 50 yards on the first play of the game. Nothing would surprise us. He took chances last week, right? They go down and score, then they pull the trigger on that onside kick. Ricky Brumfield went to him earlier in the week and said, hey, I think we can take advantage of this. Fran said, okay, if it's there, you go for it. They went for it. They recovered the onside kick. Then they end up going for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever it was on that ensuing drive. They get a field goal out of it. It's 10-0 before Clemson even touches the football. What impressed you the most last week? Was it the way they went down there with the mentality to win and not just keep it close? Was it the play of the offense, the play of the defense, the domination that they really had in all 3 phases? What stood out to you the most last week?
It was the attitude. It felt like in years past when they've kind of had that same script a couple of times at Clemson where they would get out to an early lead. It just kind of felt like they were hoping to figure out a way to hold on and win the game. This one felt like right from the start, they expected to win the game. And I think there is a significant difference. There's a difference in not only how you approach things, but then the mentality of the team, which leads to execution. And they went into that game thinking that they were the better team, and they played like the better team throughout. And even at times when they had a lead and Clemson would start to make a little run, right? They scored right before half and then got the ball to start the third quarter, even though there was the long delay. That was an opportunity right there for Clemson to really get back into it and take momentum. And the Syracuse defense came out, got a stop, and then the offense goes down and gets a field goal. It's only a 3-point that's only 3 points right there in that whole sequence, but yet it just sent a message to me that this was different than the last couple of times that they've gone down there. That, to me, the approach, the attitude, the mental capacity of this team is really what impressed me.
They do seem like a mentally tough team. Go back to the UConn game. They were dead and buried there in the third quarter. They found a way to come alive in the fourth quarter in overtime to win it. They're obviously 3-0 under Fran Brown in overtime games. They were 5-2 last year in games that they were an underdog, 1-1 this year. They do seem like a mentally tough bunch, and I think that was important when we saw the weather delay down there at Clemson, because they had all the momentum in the world. Then all of a sudden the game stops for a lengthy period of time, and you're wondering, How are they going to respond to that? And they came out and they really didn't skip a beat. And I was concerned with, okay, maybe this is where Clemson turns the tide. They did that against Troy. They got off to a sluggish start against Troy. There was a weather delay, and they came out like a ball of fire afterwards. That didn't happen last Saturday, and I think that was more about Syracuse and maybe less about Clemson.
Yeah, because Clemson was desperate, right? So they had every reason to come out, to your point, like their hair was on fire and really try to take control of that game. And yet, you had Clemson fans booing at one point, and this is a team that was supposed to be competing for a national championship. And you think about the teams that Clemson had lost to before this game, right? They lost at home to LSU, who is currently ranked in the top 5 in the country, and yet Syracuse dominated Clemson much more thoroughly than what that LSU team did. So it was just impressive all around. Everything that they did, all 3 phases contributed to that.
And you mentioned a moment ago, you said the fans were booing them, and I get that. Clemson is 1-3, and I get that we look at it and we say, well, are they the Florida State from last year?
I don't think it's that.
I don't think it's that either, and I don't think it should take away from the Syracuse win. Like, obviously Clemson is not what we thought, and they're not ranked 5th in the country or anything like that. But this is still a Clemson team that on paper, I mean, they've got athletes, right? They've got really good players on both sides of the ball. And while they may not be a top 5 opponent, I don't think it should take away. I don't think we should look at it and be like, well, Clemson's awful, so that game doesn't count for anything. There's something to be said for going down to Death Valley and knocking off Clemson, and to do it in the fashion that they did, to dominate from start to finish, to really be clean in all 3 phases. That was the thing that stood out to me. Tackling's been a problem. They were really on point with their tackling. Kicking has been shaky. Trip Woody hits a 49-yard field goal. The punt coverage continues to be fantastic. They recover an onside kick. The offense, could they move the ball against that vaunted Clemson defense, and they moved the ball against Tennessee? The way that they played clean football across the board, and I think that's really what stood out to me. To do it in that environment against that opponent, I think it says a lot about how far they've come.
And when you play them too, I think matters. When you're playing a team that's 1-2 and desperate, and they hear all the comments about what they aren't and what everyone thought they were going to be, that was a game where if Clemson was going to come out and play a game that reminded everyone of what everyone thought they were going to be in the preseason, that was the exact spot where that would happen. And yet Syracuse still went down and dominated them. And so I think that's a little bit different than if you played them and they were 2-6 and they came to the Dome and you played them at the end of the year, where at that point
they're playing all young guys.
Right. They kind of mentally checked out of the season at that point, right? They weren't at that point. They were desperate, needed a win, and I think Clemson came out expecting to punch Syracuse in the mouth, and they got punched in the mouth themselves and never really recovered from it. And just the fact that Syracuse can go down and do that, again, like you said, clean in all 3 phases, but regardless of what, I know the national narrative all week was about what's wrong with Clemson, and I think more of it should have been focused on what's right with Syracuse.
Yeah, for sure. And I joked on the Orange Nation TV show on Monday. I said that might be the best performance of all time by a defense that gave up 500 or more yards in a game, because if you didn't see the game and you looked at the final stats and you saw that SU gave up more than 500 yards, you'd be like, well, the defense didn't really play well. How did they win this game? The defense played great, and I do think that was by design, right? We talked about the explosive plays, and I think we hit the nail on the head with the explosive plays, because it seemed like SU's strategy was, okay, Clemson can't score on us if they don't beat us over the top, or if they don't beat us with a big play. If they just try to, bleed us to death with these little paper cuts, we're eventually going to be able to stop them, and that's precisely what happened. They kept everything in front of them. They only gave up those 3 explosive plays. One of them went for a long touchdown, and for the most part, the strategy worked, right? They turned them over. They stopped them on 4th down a bunch. I think Clemson was 1 for 5 on 4th down. I really thought, and the tackling was good, I thought it was a really good performance by the defense, despite the fact they gave up 500 total yards.
Yeah, when I saw that final stat line, I was a little bit surprised. It didn't feel like they were giving up 500 yards in the game. And they controlled the run game a little bit. I know there were a couple of long runs, but that really was the bulk of what they did on the ground. The biggest issue that they had in that game was when they did get pressure on Cade Klubnik, they had a little bit of trouble bringing him down. But they're certainly not alone in that. He's excellent at extending the play. But they got more pressure than they had in the previous 3 games, almost combined. It felt like they were in the backfield a lot. And to your point, they kept everything in front of them. They basically dared Cade Klubnik to be precise, accurate, and take what they gave him all the way down the field, 10, 12, 14-play drives, and Clemson proved that they couldn't do that.
Yeah, and they tried to frustrate him, and I think they did. They played a desperate team that was forced to go for it a lot, and Syracuse came up with the stops on 3rd and 4th down. They got off the field. I think Clemson was like 3 for 15, something like that on 3rd down, and then 1 for 5 on 4th down. They were able to come up and make the stop when they needed to, and I thought that was really important. And then, as a result of that, Mike, I think you look at this from a messaging standpoint from the coaches. To go down to Clemson and for each unit to kind of do what the coaches told them and then to see what the end result is, which was a dominant win over arguably the best program in the conference, I feel like that creates buy-in moving forward. And not that there wasn't buy-in. I think we've seen that the players are buying into this. But when you have positive results like that and everybody does their job, you wonder if the next week the focus is even stronger the following week, right? Going into, all right, well, this is what happened when I followed what the coaches told me. Now you keep doing that. You do that week after week, and now you start stacking wins.
Yeah, and the buy-in to me is a 3-level thing, right? So you've got the buy-in internally within the players and the coaches. Now, I think they were already bought in, but this certainly enhances that, to your point. The next part of it, to me, is the fans. And you wondered how many fans thought after the loss to Tennessee, was last year kind of a flash, and is it more the same, and sort of back to the way that it used to be, which is we just don't compete in these type of games, right? And so a win like this at Clemson, I don't care what Clemson is for the rest of the season, it enhances the buy-in from the fans, right? Those that maybe were still on the fence or are a little bit jaded from the last 25 years, right? And then with recruits as well. We know Syracuse has a really good recruiting class in 2026. They've got a 5-star wide receiver that's committed. They got other 4-star players that are committed that other teams are actively trying to flip. And so the better you perform on the field, the more it signals to those, yep, this is the program that I'm joining because I see they're trending in the right direction.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. All right, 315-437-7644 is the number. That's the Charles Heating and Air Plumbing and Electrical Hotline, sponsored by CharlesHeatingandAir.com. We're going to step aside. We're going to take our first time out. We're about 45 minutes away from kickoff between Syracuse and Duke. Live on the quad, Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you. We're back after this on ESPN Radio. What a beautiful day out here on the quad. Family weekend, parents weekend here on the SU Hill. Sold out crowd. First official sellout with Fran Brown as head coach, and should be an exciting atmosphere, an exciting game inside the Dome today. A pair of 1-0 teams in conference play, and as I stated at the top of the show, the winner of this one will be tied for first place, obviously. Virginia 2-0. Georgia Tech has a chance to be 2-0 today, and then either Syracuse or Duke. It's Georgia Tech, Virginia, and then the winner of this one likely will be 2-0 when all's said and done through week 5 of the season, which is awfully impressive.
Just like everyone drew
just like we drew it up, yeah.
Virginia,
exactly.
Georgia Tech, Duke, and Syracuse as the 4 teams in the conversation for being at the top of the ACC. Just
and
like
again, that's just 2-0. There are some teams that are 1-0, and Miami looks really good. And I guess that's my point is, I know it's early in the season, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And we know SU's schedule is very difficult. All their toughest opponents are away from home. But you win today, everything's on the table for the winner today, because I think we've seen there is not a dominant team in this conference, maybe with the exception of Miami. I think Miami's really, really good. I think they're probably going to run the table and be in the ACC title game. Outside of Miami, though, who's the next best team? Is it Georgia Tech? Well, you play Georgia Tech. Is it Virginia? I have a hard time believing that Virginia is the next best team in the conference. So, Louisville, SMU, you get to play SMU. So, it'll be interesting to see how the whole season plays itself out. But if you win today, and I think it is possible that you could get to the ACC title game with one loss. You don't want to suffer a loss in conference if you can help it, but I think Miami's going to go undefeated, and then you really don't know after that. You get a crack at Georgia Tech, you get a crack at SMU, some of the other better teams in this conference.
Yeah, that's everything that you want to accomplish is in front of you, right? So you control your own destiny from this point. Every team if you win all of your conference games, you're going to go to the ACC championship game. It's that simple. Now, that's easier said than done, obviously, and you do have that game at Miami that's looming but would you take it as being down at that spot where basically if you win that game, you're going to the ACC championship game? I mean,
of course you would.
Of course, right? So that could potentially be a massive game, and you don't know what's going to happen when Florida State and Miami play each other. And so some of these teams could end up with multiple losses. If you can stack wins and you can get some of these tiebreakers, right? Like you win today and Duke ends up running the table the rest of the way. You've got a tiebreaker over them. If you win at Georgia Tech, you've now got the tiebreaker over them. And so you can keep stacking these things together, and you set up bigger and bigger games down the road as you do that.
Are you watching the Ryder Cup at all?
I've kept tabs on it a little bit.
So it's kind of the same idea with the Ryder Cup. The Europeans are playing great. And, the strategy for the Americans has got to be just try to stay in these matches, extend these matches as long as you can, and hope that you can make up ground at the end. I kind of feel like it's the same thing of what you're saying right now is just stay in the mix for the ACC title game as long as you can. Stranger things have happened. And if you could pull off an upset or two down the stretch or somebody loses that you're not expecting to lose, it may work out in your favor. You got to stay in the mix for as long as you can, and a win today would certainly keep you very much in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the season and even after the first couple of weeks, not many people expected Virginia to beat Florida State last night, right? So there's an unexpected loss for Florida State. Now that puts them behind the 8 ball a little bit. So those types of things.
And they've got Miami next.
Right. And so if they lose to Miami now, they've got 2 losses.
They're
so
done.
now
Right, yeah.
if you can figure out a way to win at SMU and at Georgia Tech, you go into that Miami game, maybe you've already got the championship game berth locked up at that point if you're undefeated in conference play, and you're just trying to figure out which team is the home team and which team is the road game, right? So that's kind of where you're at with this.
Did you see the end of that Virginia-Florida State game last night? Did you think that was a catch in overtime that they said the Florida State receiver was bobbling it?
I would have left it at what it was on the field.
Yeah.
It was so hard.
That was hard. Yeah, and especially Virginia had just had a play prior to that was reviewed, and it could kind of go either way, and they gave it to them. I felt like it was only fair that they give it to Florida State and not decide the game on that. But
at the same time, you got to catch that clean. That was a beautiful pass.
It was beautiful, but I don't know. I thought he had it, and then I wanted to see what happened on the 2-point conversion. But
I was surprised they overturned it, to be honest with you.
I was as well. But yeah, Florida State's got a loss in conference, and we're going to have to expect a fine on Virginia for the rushing of the field, right? I mean, that was a dangerous rushing of the field. There was guys.
It was so quick, and the Florida State wide receiver was right there. I mean, and then of course there's the viral moment with the guy, the gesture to Castellanos and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. They did say, fortunately, I saw on ESPN, they said that nobody was hurt. None of the Florida State players were hurt, but it was dangerous. They had guys laying on the ground in the end zone, and the fans were on top of them in a heartbeat. Let's talk about this opponent. This opponent we're going to see today in Duke. And it's a program that in some ways is like Syracuse in that, they were quiet for a while. Now they're starting to trend in the right direction. Manny Diaz was in his first year last year. They won 9 games, got to a bowl game. Just like Syracuse, 10 wins under Fran Brown and got to a bowl game. They have an explosive offense. They've got a dynamic quarterback in Darian Mensah, who they are paying $4 million a year, by the way, reportedly $8 million over 2 years, 4 this year, 4 next year. Would you say he's lived up to the hype? I mean, he's been very good. Is he worth $8 million from what you've seen?
It seems like a lot of money.
I guess
right?
if they keep winning, he is, right?
Yeah, if they keep winning, he is. But
he wasn't against Tulane.
No, that was just kind of a weird situation, right? So
I loved it. I loved it.
I thought it was fantastic that you take their quarterback by paying $1 million, and then they beat you.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit of karma there, right? But I don't know. It's hard for me to justify any one player being worth that much money. I'm not sure there's a quarterback in the country right now that's that dynamic that would make me say, yeah, that guy, that's worth it for that guy. That puts you, to me, that's the type of money you throw at someone when that's going to put you over the top to become a national title contender.
Yeah.
Not be, let's hope we get to 8-4, right? That's a lot to spend for that. But at the same time, Duke is also trying to, under Manny Diaz, establish itself as a consistent winner. And sometimes you have to overpay a little bit in order to get that thing.
Both these offenses averaging better than 450 yards per game. Both offenses averaging over 34 points per game. The difference, again, I think this might be the difference today. The Duke defense is among the bottom in the ACC in several categories in terms of giving up yards and points and so on and so forth. Now, the stats may be a little bit skewed with Syracuse playing Colgate, but I do tend to think that this game today comes down to which defense can come up with a stop or two in the second half and get the other team off schedule.
Yeah, and the one thing that Duke has struggled with offensively is turning the ball over.
Yeah.
They fumbled it 8 times so far this season.
That Tulane game was a perfect example of
that. Yeah, exactly. So that can derail some of their drives. Even if they're moving the ball against you, those are opportunities to keep them out of the end zone, keep them off the scoreboard, and really flip momentum in a game. So they fumbled the ball 8 times, only lost 5 of them, and then they've thrown a couple interceptions as well. So they're averaging about 2 turnovers a game. And if you can get them to do that in the red zone that keeps them off the scoreboard, it's essentially like getting a stop and getting a punt. And if you can do it on the other end and give your offense a short field, now you can start to play complementary football and really put Duke behind the 8 ball. But regardless, even if Syracuse does jump out early, Duke's offense is so explosive, they're never out of the game, and so you have to keep that pressure on throughout.
Yeah, no lead is safe, and we've seen that with a Syracuse perspective as well, that no lead is safe with Syracuse. We saw them come back against UConn and steal that one at the very end. But I do think it may come down to a stop or two by which defense, and with that in mind, I think that gives Syracuse a little bit of an edge potentially in this game. I do think they've got the better defense, certainly a defense that's performed better of late. We'll hit another timeout here. Phone line's still open if you want to check in at 315-437-7644. We're halfway home on the RomanoCars.com pregame show, live from the Quad. Stephen Fati, Mike McAllister. We're back after this on ESPN Radio. picture-perfect day out here on the quad. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you for another half hour or so as we lead you right up to the noon kickoff inside a sold-out JMA Wireless Dome. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. Even the Miami game last year did not sell out, but parents' weekend here, family weekend on campus, and we're expecting a sold-out crowd today to see Syracuse take on Duke. We were talking injuries during that commercial break. Several key guys were either listed as probable or questionable. It seems like, for the most part, Mike, they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, Devin Grant, Travion Mack, and Jonte Cook were upgraded from questionable to probable this morning. Everyone seems to be out there warming up, and reports are that they're moving well. But Deuce Chestnut was still listed as questionable on the injury report officially this morning. But again, as of about an hour ago, was out there warming up with his teammates and appeared to be moving well from what I've seen.
And they picked up the slack without him last week. I thought the defense did a nice job as a whole making up for his loss. Fran Brown talked about that earlier in the week. How about the play of Devin Grant? And when he went down against Tennessee, I'll be honest with you, the way that he went down, the way he was moving, how much pain he seemed to be in, the fact he had tears streaming down his face, you couldn't help but think the worst, that this is a long-term injury. It's something significant. Maybe he's out for the year. He only missed a couple of games, and he came back, and I know he's not 100%. He still seems to have a little bit of a limp, but man, he played well against Clemson.
He sure did. And how much better was the tackling with him out there? Because there were a couple of key open field spots where he made big tackles that stopped drives or delayed drives. And it's always important to have your leader out there, and he's the leader of this defense. He kind of makes everything go, and so getting Syracuse back to full strength was important, and they sure seem to rally around that. And to your point, not having Deuce, I thought Brahim Long, a freshman, played pretty well. I know he had the one penalty, and you can question as to whether or not that deserved a penalty, but that's a point of emphasis this year, so you can't put officials in the position to make that call. Be a little smarter there, but otherwise I thought he played really well.
And Travion Mack returning to the lineup. The offensive line, it's a work in progress. It's not a finished product right yet, but I thought the offensive line took a step forward last week.
Yeah, and I thought they came out the first drive and just playing power football, running the ball with Yasin Willis between the tackles and sort of going right at the Clemson defensive line. And Fran Brown talked about that after the game, that they kind of took that challenge on with how good Clemson's defensive line is, how talented it is, and said if you're going to go up against them, you got to go right at them. And don't just kind of look at them and be in awe of them, but go after them just like you would anybody else. They did that. They certainly held their own, and that allowed the offense to get rolling early.
We talked about who's going to be on the field today from an injury standpoint. How about who's going to be on the sidelines from a recruiting standpoint? A couple of high-profile athletes, one football, one basketball in particular, in town on their recruiting visit. Calvin Russell, you mentioned, is going to be in the house, the five-star wide receiver, and Deron Rippey Jr., the five-star point guard, will be here as well, and he's got some other visits set up. Duke, Kentucky, Tennessee, NC State. So he is considered among the best point guards in the country, and hopefully Syracuse football and his community can put on a show for both of those guys.
Yeah, Syracuse fans can have a big impact on recruiting for both basketball and football by showing out today, right? So that's kind of. It gives you an opportunity to showcase to these recruits what being at Syracuse is all about, and you can have a legitimate big-time atmosphere here. And, joining Calvin Russell he's got a teammate who's a four-star wide receiver in the 2027 class, Nick Lanier. He's going to be here as well. They got a couple other four-stars that are going to be in the stands, so it's a huge recruiting weekend for both programs. There's no question. Yeah, and we asked Fran Brown earlier in the week about that. We said, does it matter to these recruits if the place is full? And he said, well, think about it. Like, would it matter, to me, like if you were trying to encourage me to be on your show and I showed up and all these people are watching and the ratings are great, and, of course it's going to feel good to walk into a packed house and to see the place full, everybody rooting for the home team, and, hopefully, giving a lot of positive reinforcement to these guys when they see them in the stands or see them on the sidelines. So, Fran said, of course it matters to these guys. Yeah, it definitely does. Everything about going to a game day visit matters, from the performance of the team to the interaction with the current players and the coaches to interacting with the fans to the whole game day experience as a whole. That includes not only the fans being there, but also the atmosphere that they provide with being loud and being engaged and all those types of things.
All right, as we look around the ACC here, we mentioned the big game last night, number 8 Florida State going down on the road at Virginia in double overtime. ACC games today, Georgia Tech and Wake Forest will kick things off at noon. Wake is just not good. Georgia Tech 4-0 on the season. I would expect that they're going to continue to roll there, although you never know in this conference. Louisville on the road at Pittsburgh for a noon start. Cal plays Boston College at 3:30. NC State plays host to a struggling Virginia Tech team that's going through some transitions there. That's a 7 o'clock kick. And then Stanford at home out of conference tonight against San Jose State. 1-3 Stanford will play 1-2 San Jose State at 7:30. Any games stick out to you on the slate today as a team that might be on upset alert? Do you think Georgia Tech has anything to worry about today?
I don't think they have anything to worry about, but the game that intrigues me the most is Pitt-Louisville, just because I'm not 100% sure how good Pitt is or not, and I kind of feel the same way about Louisville, but that's I believe, is that the conference opener for both teams, right?
Yeah, it is.
It'll be interesting to see which one of those can join the ranks of the unbeaten. We know Syracuse is playing Pitt in a couple of weeks.
And it seems like that these are almost like elimination games, right?
Yeah.
Pitt-Louisville, like that seems like an elimination game when you're looking at, the ACC championship. There's so many teams in this conference now that you figure at least one's going to go unbeaten, maybe two. And again, I think if you're Syracuse, you got to hope that if you lose to Miami, that a one-loss team could somehow sneak into the ACC title game. But this does feel like an elimination game of sorts for Pittsburgh and Louisville, and for Syracuse and Duke. It feels like an elimination game. So with that in mind, let's take another timeout. We'll take our final timeout. We'll get to our keys to the game. We'll get to our predictions on the other side. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you up until 12 o'clock. We're back after this on ESPN Radio. All right, we are back on the quad. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you for another 10 minutes or so as we get you set for Syracuse and Duke. Time to get to our dream outcome, brought to you by Liverpool Pool and Spa. Lay it out for us, Mike. I mean, outside of a win, what's a dream outcome? I would assume Ricky Collins is going to be in your answer in some way, shape, or form.
100%. He has to be, because I think the dream outcome for Syracuse is that Ricky Collins comes in and plays really well, plays a clean game, doesn't show a lot of rust from not starting a game for 3+ years, right? And the offense looks like it did the last couple of games with Angeli running the show. So that's I think, the first part of it. And the second part of it is, I think you get out to an early lead, you control the game throughout, and you win the game comfortably by multiple scores. You do all of those things, and I think everyone will feel pretty good about it.
That's the dream outcome, brought to you by Liverpool Pool and Spa. Don't just dream it, live it with Liverpool Pool and Spa. And I feel like a lot of people coming out of that Clemson game, a lot of Syracuse fans, their excitement was tempered, right? Because it was like, well, that was a great win, and they're 3-1. But there's no Steve Angeli the rest of the way. It's Ricky Collins. What can we expect from Ricky Collins? And I think, to your point, if Ricky comes out and plays well, if they win this game comfortably, or even if they just win this game, period, and Ricky plays well, I think it maybe alleviates some of those concerns for SU fans, and then maybe they can truly enjoy this and truly feel like this season could turn into something special if they catch a few breaks.
Yeah, and going to SMU next week, I don't think they're what everyone kind of thought they were based on what the season they had last year, right? I don't think that's an unwinnable game. So if this is huge for Ricky Collins' confidence, for the confidence of the entire team, for the offense, etc., is, keep things moving, keep things humming. We've seen what they've done the last 2 years on the offensive side of the ball. If you keep all that moving in the right direction, you make some plays on defense, and you get out of here with a win, then you feel really good, like you have an opportunity to stack another road win next week, and then you set up a massive game against Pittsburgh the week after that.
We talked with the defense about the fact they kept everything in front of them. They didn't give up a lot of big plays last week, that they tackled better. One thing we didn't really mention is their propensity for forcing turnovers. They're at 24, they're 24th in the country right now. They have forced 6 turnovers so far on the season. So that's top 25 in the country through 4 games. I think that, again, that is a good sign. Sometimes you can't rely on turnovers, but 4 games is a decent sample size that this team has done a pretty good job of turning the other team over. And not just that, again, they had all of those fourth down stops last week that technically don't count towards that number. So this defense has gotten better tackling, keeping things in front of them, but let's not forget that they've been able to turn their opponents over as well.
Making key plays at key opportunities in key moments was something that the defense relied on last year, and they've continued that this year. They were great on third down for most of last year. As we mentioned earlier, they held Clemson to 3 for 13, 3 for 15, whatever it was on third down, 1 for 5 on fourth down last week, and then forced those two turnovers as well. They forced a turnover against UConn, forced turnovers against Colgate. So it's kind of 3 games in a row that it seems like each week the defense is getting a little bit better and a little bit better, and they're playing perhaps the most explosive offense that they've seen so far this season, or certainly right up there with Tennessee in this game. And so it's an opportunity to show how far you've grown since that week. And that starts with not only forcing turnovers, but just being solid, getting off the field on third down, being good in the red zone, forcing field goals. And similar game plan to last week is you don't care how many yards they get as long as you can prevent those explosive plays.
And just as you said that the defense has gotten a little bit better each week, we saw Steve Angeli seem to get a little bit better each week. And so I think, just like we said a moment ago, that if Ricky Collins plays really well today, it's going to alleviate concerns for this SU fan base. Let's take the flip side of that. If he doesn't play well today, or if it's a little bit shaky, that doesn't necessarily mean it's time to panic. It could just be it's his first start in 3 years. They're going up against a really good opponent. Maybe it will take him this week, next week at SMU, for him to truly settle in, and then coming off that bye week when Pittsburgh comes to town, maybe that's where things start to take off for Ricky. So I think it goes both ways, right? With this fan base, is that if today goes great, okay, fantastic. But if it doesn't go well for Ricky Collins, don't panic. It is just his first start. People need to be patient with him, and I think that the coaches are going to try to be patient with rhythm as well, certainly, to help him settle in, because he is the leader of this team, at least for the rest of the season and maybe beyond. Who knows?
Yeah, and we've seen this team bounce back over the last year and a half when they faced adversity, right? Even losing Angeli in that game against Clemson, that could have been the sort of spark that got Clemson back in the game, and you end up losing a game that you felt like you dominated a majority of, and instead Ricky Collins comes in, he throws that key touchdown pass, kind of kept things at arm's length there, and they were able to win the game. We saw last year, every time they lost a game, the couple of times they did, they bounced back and had a really good performance the following week. They seem to bounce back, and I think that goes back to the dark culture that Fran Brown has instilled, but they thrive through adversity, and so even if they face some today, if they face some with a poor Ricky Collins performance, I wouldn't worry too much about it moving forward. I think they'll make the necessary adjustments, and things will get better.
All right, let's get to our home field advantage, brought to you by the Marriott Syracuse Downtown. Give me something today that you feel like Syracuse has an advantage in against Duke.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, the fact that Syracuse is top 25 in the country at forcing turnovers, and Duke has a propensity to turn the ball over. 8 fumbles on the season, 5 lost, 2 interceptions. So they put the ball in harm's way 10-plus times already on the season. Syracuse is good at taking advantage of those opportunities. So I think the turnover battle is a key area where I think Syracuse has an advantage, and I do think the winner of that is going to win this game.
That's your home field advantage, brought to you by the Marriott Syracuse Downtown. Your home advantage for breakfast, lunch, or dinner any day. Home of the home game tailgate and unbeatable with free parking and a $2 shuttle to and from the game. That's the Marriott Syracuse Downtown. You mentioned the dark culture there a moment ago, and I asked Fran Brown about that earlier in the week. I said, how much does the dark culture help with managing success, right? They're 3-1. They're coming off this massive win over Clemson. You know, do you have to talk to the guys about staying focused and not overlooking any opponent? Not that they would necessarily overlook Duke, but I asked him about that culture. He said, yes, that's part of it, but he said, we're also not mature enough for me not to mention it. So he said he definitely talked about managing success this week. You know, enjoy it. The win over Clemson, Saturday night, Sunday, but when you get back in the building on Monday, it's over and done with. It's on to Duke, and he says that he thinks the guys have done a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, the mental aspect of a game like this, right? And Duke has a little bit of that as well, right? They had a couple of setbacks. They lost to Illinois. They lost to Tulane on the road, and what was a kind of a weird circumstance there with the quarterback. And then they come back home. They get down to NC State, but then they rally and come back, have a big win to get themselves back on the right foot. So I think both teams are trying to figure out how you manage those important wins from a week ago and trying to make that be a more consistent thing as opposed to, you know, the ups and downs where it's a great performance and then a step back and then a great performance and a step back. That's the mental challenge I think both teams have going into this game.
All right, let's get to our keys to the game now, brought to you by Drivers Village. What do you think this game ultimately comes down to, Mike?
I do think it's a turnovers, but as I've already mentioned that, I'll mention something else. I think that one of the key aspects of this game is Syracuse's ability to protect the passer and give Ricky Collins a clean pocket to let him do his thing and see the field clearly. And I'm specifically looking at one player on Duke's defense. That's Vincent Anthony. He has 5 of their 10 sacks on the season. And if Syracuse can keep him at bay and not let him wreak havoc in the backfield, Duke has struggled to rush the passer with the rest of their front 7, and I think that bodes well for Syracuse.
I do think that the offense is going to have to pick up the slack for Ricky in some way, shape, or form until he gets comfortable. The receivers, you know, they might have to make a catch that, you know, the ball wasn't thrown perfectly, but they make a big catch to bail him out, and the offensive line block it for him. The running backs doing their thing. I think everybody in offense kind of has to do their thing to pick up for the fact that, you know, it is Ricky's first start. And defensively, do what you did last week. Keep everything in front of you. Tackle well. You know, avoid the big plays. If Syracuse can do those things, I think they probably come out on top today. And with that in mind, Mike, those are your keys to the game, by the way, brought to you by Drivers Village. For your keys to your car, shop today in Cicero or at dvoffers.com. We got about 30 seconds left. We need a prediction out of you. Who wins today?
I got 34-27 Syracuse. I think there's some up and downs throughout the game. game. Wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse ends up with a score on the defensive side of the ball. At the very least, gives the Syracuse offense a very short field once or twice. And I think Ricky Collins has some shaky moments, but as the game goes along, gets more comfortable and starts moving the ball, and they're able to hold off Duke in the end.
All right. I think Syracuse wins 31-28. I think it's a close game. I think it goes right down to the wire. I think Syracuse is a little bit better defensively. We got to go. For Mike McAllister, I'm Stephen Fonte. Enjoy the game, everybody.